Dirt roads to rock crawling, two-buck chuck to screaming eagle, moonshine to 50-year-old single malt. We talk about it all here on Wheelin' Wine and Whiskey with your hosts, Jason and Chris.
Welcome to Wheeling Wine and Whiskey, episode 99, Chris. Episode 99. We are one away from 100.
Absolutely.
Hundo, I should say. 100. 100. It's like Pedro. Anyways.
Is that Lorenzo's cousin?
We are in a, where are we right now? We're in a hangar.
We're in God's country in a hangar.
In a hangar.
In a big, beautiful, awesome shop.
This is quite the place. It's very, very cool. A lot of cool equipment. Very well organized. A lot of eye candy here.
Oh, my God.
I'm still wiping the drool from my mouth.
So Wheeling Wine and Whiskey is on the road. We are no longer in the home studio, folks.
No, finally out of quarantine on the road. But we are here at Bomber Fabrication with three-time king, Randy Slawson. Randy, thanks for having us here at your fine facility. And this is just incredible. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited you guys got to come.
Oh, absolutely.
So this is cool. So, man, I don't even know where to begin. I just, there's so many questions I have, and looking at the craftsmanship and everything here, and what you've created over the years, and obviously you've created a legacy, and being a three-time king. But before we get into all the King of the Hammer stuff, how'd you get started? Just cars and engines and racing and all that good stuff. Where did it all begin?
Man, I've been a wheel guy as long as I can remember. My dad built me a little bike from the junkyard, and then that turned into many, many days riding bicycles and skateboards and RC cars. And then he bought us a little Honda 50, 1970 Honda 50 from the neighbor.
Perfect.
And my brother and I terrorized the neighborhood with that thing for years and years. And then we were way too big for it, but we had a ton of fun on it. Then one day, my uncle, my mom's oldest brother, Ron, showed up with this 1980 IT-125 in the back of his old Ford. And he'd ask our parents if it was okay to gift it to me and my brother. And that really changed our lives. We rode a lot of dirt bikes and played with that, and then that transitioned into four-wheel drive stuff. And his younger brother, Ron's younger brother, Ken, our uncle, lived over here in Sacramento and took us up to the Rubicon when we were,
there you go.
I was probably 13, and he had a 68 FJ40 Land Cruiser, and it was on 36 Dixie Pick Fun Countries, and it was the biggest,
yes,
biggest, baddest Land Cruiser on the Rubicon.
Probably see some pictures of that in Jeep Magazine. Wow. Four-wheeler and off-road.
And when he drove that thing through the little sluice and drove over that huge VW-sized rock in there, it changed my life.
Literally,
Never been the same since.
That's killer. So the good old Rubicon. Just the experience of the Rubicon has changed so many people.
How old were you 13? In that?
I think I was about 13. So I believe last summer was my 30th year going to the Rubicon.
Oh my God. Wow. And now your adventures on the Rubicon are quite different than back then.
Yeah, we move along at a different pace and take on different challenges for sure.
With age comes the cage, right?
I'm not giving that up yet.
Okay. I was going to say, so how much dirt bike riding do you still do? Quite a bit.
You guys didn't get to see in the barn, but I've got a couple of pretty nice scooters in there.
Okay. KTM?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tour's not over, is it?
No, we're just starting. So that's cool. So you got to witness this rig going over the Rubicon at a young age and going, this is pretty freaking cool. So then how did the evolve from there? So now you're 13, so, in a few years you get to actually drive. But what was your first vehicle, and what'd you drive, or did you build it up before you got your license, or?
Unfortunately, I didn't. My dad was not a gearhead.
Okay.
And we didn't do projects and things like that when I was a kid. The first vehicle that he didn't give me, but that was my car to drive to school, was like an 85 Chevy Astro van.
Oh, jeez.
An Astro van.
Fortunately, that didn't stick around too long, and he kind of hand-me-down me this 1989 Mazda B2200 Cab Plus, a little 2-wheel drive with a 4-cylinder 5-speed.
Yeah.
And it was I don't know, that would have been 94, 95. So the thing wasn't, 6 years old or something. It was a nice little truck back then. And I beat the crap out of it and had a ton of fun sliding it around and playing rally racer in a 2-wheel drive and trying to go off-roading and whatnot in it. Mm-hmm. But then during high school, during that era, the neighbor kid had a 67 Ford Bronco that he was trying to sell, and I ended up giving him $1,000 for this shit brown rust bucket.
Wow.
And that was when my four-wheeling started. That was the first car that I bought. It had a 289 and a 3 on the tree and a drum brake.
And he paid $1,000 for that.
Drum brake Dana 30 that we broke. And so that was really where I cut my teeth with the wheeling thing. Beating that thing around and trying to make it run. It was terrible. It never charged right. It didn't start good. It broke the front end and it
was a Ford.
We had a lot of problems with it. But at first I was going to restore it, and then it didn't take very long before I realized that it was enough of a rust bucket that was a lost cause. So we just smashed it through the forest up in Tillamook, Oregon, until it was custom narrowed through the trees.
So you were raising vehicles before Toyotas started raising vehicles, or no? Toyotas were raising back then.
Oh yeah, raised up. You mean get beating the shit out of the bodies? Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah,
manual steering, manual brakes. It was quite the machine.
See, that makes you appreciate what you got now.
Armstrong steering, right?
So Bronco, that's cool. And then where did that go? What was the next rig after that?
During that high school era, I started messing around a little bit with auto body, and I did a couple of projects. The first project was fixing the Mazda because I crashed it. And then I decided instead of fixing shit that I crashed, it'd be better to buy auction cars. So I bought a couple of cars from auction and fixed them up and sold them and make a few bucks. And then on one of my excursions to the wrecking yard over in Portland, Oregon, I found a 95 YJ.
Oh.
And it had been rolled over, real light damage, but they'd kind of pieced a couple of them together. The thing was that kind of, not forest green, a dark tealy green color. And it was a 4-cylinder 5-speed.
Okay.
And it already had a 4-inch lift on it and had 33 1250 BFG mud trains on 1510 alloys. So it was real set up, 33s
back
out
then,
of the box.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought the thing for $5,700. It had 3,000, had right around 30,000, 29,000 something miles on it, I think. I think it might have turned 30,000 miles on my drive home to Tillamook with it. But I sold one of the projects I was working on. My parents loaned me a couple bucks, and I went and bought the thing and drove it out of the junkyard, drove it home, and started working on it. It had like Confer gold anodized shackles.
Oh, the old Confer shackles. Yeah, my Jeep came with those too. I remember those.
The rear end, I thought something was bent on it because the Confers were in a terrible bind to the side. And it turned out whoever put the lift on just left the panhard hooked up and didn't do a bracket.
Oh, shit.
And it just had the suspension all in this terrible bind. So I took the panhards off and threw them away. And
that's pretty much what everybody. I have a 95 YJ, and it has no panhard rods on it. Yeah. It still leaf sprung, but yeah.
The thing drove amazing. It got terrible mileage. It got like 13 with its little 2.5 liter.
Now try having a 6-cylinder. That's what I have. Yeah, it definitely has 35s on now. It drinks a lot of fuel.
Right. But that was literally what I drove through college when it wasn't broken.
And then did you wheel it quite a bit? Or because since it was your daily driver, were you like super conservative with it?
I was never super conservative with anything. I remember my brother one day, we were up in the hills by Bay City, and there was a gravel pit up there, and I thought we'd been riding dirt bikes around, and the gravel mound was flat on top and it was sloughing off down to the ground level, and we'd been jumping our dirt bikes off it, and it was great. So I jumped that Jeep off of it, and I just about endoed it. A little short wheelbase and no power.
Oh, boy.
He was furious at me. He wanted to walk home. He thought for sure I was going to kill him. But I
Trying to kill me.
That was probably the summer that I got that Jeep. The summer that I got it, we drove it, no top. I think it had a bikini top. We drove it from Tillamook to Sacramento to the Rubicon, which is
it's a long drive.
That's a haul from Oregon.
10 hours, maybe?
Yeah.
That's a long drive.
Probably 10 hours to Sac and then a few more, up to Rubicon. And wheeled it for a few days and then drove it back home. I remember going back through Redding that particular trip. It was like 110. And I remember thinking it was just like being in an enormous hairdryer. It just
can't be much more than 114.
Yeah, exactly. No, I
so
remember those days.
No damage on the Rubicon? You didn't have to baling wire or duct tape or anything together?
That thing, it being a 4-cylinder, 5-speed, it was 410s in the diffs. It was open. And you kind of had to baby it, nurse the gas pedal just a little bit, but it really crawled pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really remember ever having any problems. Back then, we didn't hardly carry tools. I didn't have any spares.
Right.
We went for several days and
I don't think
had a good time and
had fun.
Drove it back home.
Yeah.
It wasn't as tough back then, and that fuel-injected engine didn't hurt. So, definitely things in your favor.
It was a fun rig. I definitely learned a lot with it. The Bronco had the V8 and might have had more peak horsepower, but the Jeep, the drivability of that 2.5 liter and 150 horsepower, it was a much more easygoing, reliable, predictable little wheeling rig. Super light. The thing couldn't have weighed 3,000 pounds.
Yeah, I think mine was 3,300 pounds before I put all the armor on it. But yeah, so... but yeah,
it had already been rolled and was already damaged and already had a salvage title. So
sure.
So you didn't care.
Did it have had doors and everything?
It had half doors and it had a best top, super top or whatever it would have been back then, with the full. So it ended up after buying a few pieces and sewing some damaged canvas and this and that. It ended up having a full top, but it didn't have carpeting in it. It didn't have really any creature comforts other than it had the vinyl buckets in the front.
Sure.
And it was actually a Rio Grande. It had AC.
Oh God, really?
I got the AC charged and it worked.
So it was 110, you had no top and you were
the AC was not working at that particular time in its life. But
the floor probably got super hot too. And you'd be like,
I remember in the winter with that top, we'd snow wheel a ton because I was going to college in Walla Walla, Washington.
Uh-huh.
And
that's a real place.
It is. Walla Walla, where the onions come from.
Jeez, I didn't know that was a real place.
I thought that was just from the cartoons, too.
I know, right? Wow. Okay.
But I remember, you really didn't need the heater.
Sure. Yeah, no.
Definitely get a lot of
engine heat, yeah.
Exhaust
is right under your feet. Yeah, no doubt.
So you come back from that trip. How long did you have this Jeep for?
I probably had it 2 years. I think I put about 20,000 miles on it in that time. And I bet a third of them were in the dirt.
Nice.
I was out in the dirt constantly beating on that thing.
So that was the only trip down to the Rubicon in that rig?
Oh, no.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
No, we made that first trip. We went with the folks and met up with the aunt and uncle that lives in Sacramento.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And we went wheeling. We ended up having Uncle Ken had his Land Cruiser, and then my cousin Dustin, who's my age, who co-drove with me this year at King of the Hammers. He's been co-driving for 6 years now, I believe. He had a 94 Toyota pickup that was a 4-cylinder, 5-speed standard cab, short box, cool little clean, the last of the Toyota pickups proper before the Tacomas.
Before the Tacomas, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then his younger brother, Tim, had a 69 Land Cruiser. And that one was spring over on 35s and a 400 Pontiac GTO motor.
Oh, wow.
Pretty cool rig.
Vroom, vroom.
And then there's three of them. The youngest brother had I'm gonna kill it, but we'll call it a 48 Willys with the F head or flat head or whatever it was, with the stock Dana 25 front end with the drum brakes. And I think they did get a 44 from a male Jeep or something it had in the back, and it had the 33 by whatever the wide one's 1450 or whatever Dixie Pex on it.
Oh my God.
It looked amazing. But it didn't work so good. I think On that particular trip, part of the time I was running on 3 cylinders, which was very problematic with that amount of power.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then to make matters worse, the driver front wheel cylinders seized, and so the brake was dragging violently. And I remember my Uncle Ken helping him take it apart and got the brakes out of it and clamped the brake line.
Oh,
and just being like, how do you know how to do all this stuff? And just, I used to be real mind fucked by simple mechanical things like that obviously I've overcome.
Yeah, a little bit.
But that's what you see. I mean, you see, and that's it. When you're new to being out there four-wheeling, I mean, you don't just pull over on the side of the road and call AAA. You got to figure this shit out. And those hardcore trail wheelers, have seen trail fixes, done all these crazy fixes themselves, and you just learn that stuff over the years. And it's like, we got to get this thing off the trail because there's no other option.
Right. No, you got to go home.
And so you start seeing that stuff, and then it evolves into this here.
It evolves into eventually throwing potato chips in your radiator, right?
That too. Whatever it takes, little pepper.
Yeah.
Potato chips, maybe an egg. I don't know.
My dad was always a perfectionist and real particular about his stuff. And we got up there in that Jeep, and I got into the gatekeeper, the pinch rocks, the squeeze. I don't know what you call it there at Rubicon, right off the slabs there.
Yeah.
And kind of struggled a little bit and ended up folding one of the pinch welds rocker panels in on the bottom of the tub on the driver's side. Mm-hmm. And I started getting a little bit of a lecture from my dad, and I was like, no, you don't understand. This rig it's a salvage Jeep. I bought it to beat it.
Right.
And that's what we're here to do.
Bought it to beat it.
That's right.
Before beat not babied was a thing.
Yeah.
I was beating them and not babying them.
I love it. That's perfect. So, what was the next rig after the square headlight Barbie Jeep?
So during that era, it would have been that summer or the next summer. My brother, he was 6 years younger than I was, and he was probably 15 or so when he first bought it. He bought an 84 extended cab, 4-wheel drive Toyota pickup.
Okay.
And he pieced together a junkyard suspension lift with some add-a-leaves and some terrible old school crap and a 3-inch body lift, and actually bought some 35s off Uncle Ken, some Wrangler mud terrains, Goodyears, the military looking ones.
Oh, the old style
old school,
ones.
and had it on 8s with a bunch of back spacing, and the thing was like 6 or 7 inches of lift and skinny. And before he even got his license, his best friend had his license and rolled it and crashed it and totaled it.
Whoops.
Sorry about your luck. So he found another one. Back in the day, we were huge into Truck Trader, Auto Trader.
Good old Truck Trader. Yeah.
And
Truck Trader.
the Cycle
Paper.
Trader.
It was a paper magazine.
Yeah. We knew which gas station had it first. And we would be there at 10 o'clock in the morning on Thursday to buy all 3 of them. And then we would study them until they were wore out.
And circle the ones you were interested in. And
all of that.
This is before the internet here.
Wow.
Good old Truck Trader. I remember Truck Trader.
Yeah, no, Truck Trader. It's trucktrader.com now, right?
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, I don't think they've made a paper copy for quite a few years. I got a lot of good memories and a lot of good stories that came out of Truck Trader and Cycle Trader. But my brother bought another 84 truck and ended up having a bad motor and took the engine out of the rolled truck to fix it. And I ended up buying the carcass, and I bought a ratty 2-wheel drive with 300,000 miles on it and shag carpet on the door panels.
Nice.
And it had believe it or not, it had a 20R in it, and it was an 84. It should have had a 22R.
A 22, yeah.
I think I bought it from this lady for $200, and it didn't run. And I drug it home, and the bed was hammered, and there was nothing nice about this truck. And my parents looked at me and shook their heads like, "What is wrong with you, kid?"
Where do we go wrong?
Drugs.
I rolled the body off that wrecked truck, and I had a oxygen propane cutting set up, and I cut the frame in half in the driveway, in the gravel, in the rain, in the mud.
Wow.
And I scabbed it back together with this Lincoln stick welder that I had, and I put that 2-wheel drive standard cab on it. And then I didn't have a motor, but I was going to Walla Walla. In Walla Walla, I was taking auto mechanics, and I took a couple of motors that were junk.
Okay.
And put them in the bed of that truck, and we flat towed it on a sketchy tow bar that I made back to Walla Walla, and rebuilt one of the motors. I think I had $600 in it, and I was building a snow wheeler because that's what we did in Walla Walla.
Sure.
Was snow wheel during the winter. During the summer, there was nothing to do. It was just dry and dusty and crappy. So, I think I had $1,000. I had 3 Swampers and 1 Gateway Gumbo motor on some rusty steel wheels, but it was 36 1450s and
Making it happen.
welded diff, and the thing ran great because I just rebuilt the motor for $600. And
There you go.
I think I rolled that thing 20 times that spring that I got it running.
Oh, shit.
At first, it was a joke. We were tipping it over on purpose. One particular trip, towards the end of the trip, it was super late, super early in the morning. I rolled in an accident at the 3rd or 4th time, and at that point, everybody was looking at me like I'd bumped my head. The one headlight that worked quit working. I had a mag light duct taped to the fender.
No.
You guys, I'll have to get a picture of this thing out so you can see it. It had a 2x6 wooden flatbed that I'd lag bolted together and screwed together. The bed was junk, so we just...
Pretty redneck, man.
I like it.
Man.
I like it.
Those are my people.
Those
right.
are, yes. Our people too. Absolutely love it.
That's awesome.
So with this newly rebuilt motor being on its site all that time, you didn't starve it for oil, and it didn't give you any headaches?
You know, years down the road, it went through several different builds. It ended up cracking the block, and it cracked the block because it didn't have those gussets that bolt on the back of the block and go down to the bell housing.
Okay.
And it had a dual case, and it was mounted at the rear case. So it just had so much leverage on the back of the block, it ended up giving up. It got a real bad leak one day when I was driving it out to Johnson Valley when we moved to Southern California. And I was like, oh man, I lost the rear main. And then I got it home and cleaned it up, and I was like,
Uh-oh.
ugh.
That's not good.
It's worse than that.
Oh,
Little
geez.
JB Weld, slap that on there, you'd be good to go.
I found another takeout motor for $200 and punted that one.
Probably a good call.
So you just mentioned Johnson Valley. So you went from Oregon to Johnson Valley, and which we all know that's just kind of crazy rock crawling and a little bit of everything down there. So what year was that, and what rigs were you running out there in Johnson Valley before you were racing?
The summer that I got married to my wife, Crista, was 2001. And I had rolled my Toyota truck that was my daily driver and smashed the cab all up. And it was the second cab after the one that I was telling you about just a minute ago.
Okay.
That one was a white one. This one was a red one. And then I rolled and crashed that one, and I bought a Lincoln Town car for $700, and I was getting to school in it. And
That's a big car, man.
it was a big car.
Sled.
Me and my couple of best friends and my brother and a couple of strays throughout the couple of years, we kept renting these houses. Or at first it was this nice townhouse, and then after that it was just like this really ratty old barn house that was like 3 stories.
Uh-huh.
And we'd have like 5 or 7 of us all shacked up. And so my brother had a Ford LTD Police Interceptor with a 351 that ran on like 7 cylinders and would still go 120 miles an hour. And I bought that Lincoln Town car, and it was I guess it would have been a 302, right? It was a fuel injected 89. It was the last winged boxy.
Yeah, it might have been a
Sure,
302.
5.0, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a 5 liter. And my buddy Levi, his grandpa, gave him this pristine, beautiful Mercury Grand Marquis. And so we had
Another sled.
3 flavors, all Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury, big old 4-door sleds. And my brother got his for free, and it was a piece of shit, and he killed it. And my best friend Levi, he got his for free from his grandpa. And he was trying to kind of take care of it because it was a garage kept, grandpa owned,
Nice
pristine.
car. Right.
It was a piece of shit. It wasn't worth anything, but it was still a really nice car.
Dealer maintained and all that stuff, right?
And then I had that one that I bought on a street corner for $700. And we used to take him off sweet jumps and go four-wheeling. And the last time I took it out, we went up in the hills there outside Walla Walla, and I was playing Rally Racer and thinking it was super cool to have a V8, and I had the thing hot knocking. It was
Oops.
It was pissed. And then the tranny started slipping, and it was all downhill from there.
That was the end of that.
So yeah, you're not easy on your equipment at all.
I never really have been.
So how many rollovers would you estimate that you've been in? Because all this leading up, I rolled that one, I rolled this one, I rolled that one. What would you, if you had to just throw out a number, how many rollovers would you say?
Until very recently, I would say that I've grown out of that, and I don't really roll the cars anymore.
That's good. That's good.
I would estimate in Bomber race cars a very low number.
Yeah.
Almost every single one of them a very low speed tip over scenario. Never hurt anybody. Never hurt myself.
There you go. That's good. That's a testament.
But this last couple of years with my trail buggy, I've racked up quite a number. I think I've got 4 in one night.
Oh boy.
4 in one night. That's a good one.
That's my current record.
All right, so we're talking about these lead sleds, Randy, and then where did it go from there? How did you get to building these Bomber chassis and racing? Your turn to talk.
All right, let's do this. Sometimes it takes me a second to.
That's fine. That's fine. We can edit out the spots here. I'll open a beer while we're waiting for you.
Perfect.
Nice job. Yellow Belly's going to treat you real nice.
Nice.
Lead sleds. So we were talking about rolling over and stuff.
Yeah, how many times you've rolled over and all that?
Like I think I was mentioning recently, since the last couple of summers with the trail buggy, there's been a lot of that. So anyway, then you ask about how I got started with King of the Hammers. So during college, during the lead sled era, I met this girl Crista, and we ended up hitting it off and getting married. And she wanted to take nursing, so she wanted to do that in Loma Linda. So we ended up moving from. She was in Washington State, I was in Oregon State. We got married and we moved 20 hours away to Southern California.
SoCal. That had to be a huge culture shock.
It was. Palm trees. I'd never seen palm trees in the wild. What was the joke about the weather?
Right.
Yeah, we used to joke that the rain was like a cow pissing on a flat rock.
That's pretty descriptive. That paints an image right there.
No doubt. No doubt. That's great.
So when I got to Southern California, the deal then was Toyotas. Like, we liked rock crawling and we liked Toyota trucks. So the biggest Toyota rock crawling guy down there at the time was John Bondurant at All Pro Off Road. So
okay.
I went from Colton, where we were living, over to Hemet, where he was, and I got a job. Didn't work out great. Didn't last long. But I got a little bit of experience there, and then I grunted through a year or so of general automotive, busting tires, doing alignments, brakes. Really not my favorite part of life, but
it's just routine stuff, right?
Routine
Gotta make it happen.
Yeah. But, everything is good experience. I'm still super good at busting tires. I'm still good at doing brakes.
Right on.
I don't like to need to, but sometimes I do. So from there, I started doing a little bit of work in my garage. New neighbor moved in and came over, heard the chop saw, and he's like, "What are you up to?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm building this rock crawler." And he owned a little lowrider shop called Suspension Dimension, and he did air ride mini trucks.
Okay.
He ended up hiring me, and I worked there for a little while. Well, his shop turned out was next to this much larger fab shop called Extreme Performance Sandcars. And when his small shop wasn't making it and he folded up, the two of us both went to work for Extreme Performance, and I ended up working there for probably 2.5 years.
Wow.
It wasn't very long, 2003 to 2005-ish. But that period in my life, I probably learned more about fabrication and making nice quality welds and cutting and sanding. Mm-hmm. We used to go over there from the lowrider shop and look at his collection of suspension tabs and brackets and various things he had on the shelf. And we'd be like, I'll take 2 of these and 3 of those. And he's like, they're very expensive. They're all handmade. And I'd look at them and go, really? There's no way that that's handmade. But when I went to work there, I got to learn all of those tips and tricks on how to sand your tabs to where it looks like a machine did it.
There you go.
So it was a good experience.
No, you're good.
Next question.
Next question. Okay, so that's good. So you started your fabbing skills or refining your fabbing skills there. But how did it turn into where it is today? So how did the Bomber name come to fruition? What was the first car you built or chassis, or what led to where you are today?
The evolution of the Randy Slawson rock crawler.
Good word, evolution.
I had built a ExoCage 85 truck the summer before Chris and I got married, and it was Schedule 40 pipe, and it was stick welded, and it was the coolest thing that I could put together on the budget that I had and the knowledge that I had.
Okay.
And we took it down to Johnson Valley, and it did a great job. It was a very lightweight, for what it was, nimble, capable rock crawler that I daily drove, and we'd drive it out to Johnson Valley and wheel it hard and roll it over and drive it back home.
So more rollovers.
More rollovers. There's a theme.
I was going to say that, but I didn't. I was going to. Okay.
So when I was working for Extreme Performance, I started collecting buggy parts. All the 10-bender guys had buggies. The guys were encouraging me to cut up my Toyota and buggy it out. And I was like, no, I'm not cutting this thing up. I'm done with this truck. I'm moving on up.
Like the Jeffersons.
Moving on up.
So I bought a Toyota. What was the car that had a 22RE? A Celica. It was an 83 Celica. The Celicas were fuel injected 2 years before the Toyota trucks were. Same motor, 22R.
Okay, yeah.
So I bought a Celica for like $300 in the high desert and drove it home. And I pulled the motor and I freshened it up and I put it in the corner. And I had a Dana 44 that I had narrowed from a Chevy and used Wagoneer axles and this and that. And it was going to be the front end. And then I had a IFS Toyota rear end. And before I ever got started, none of the parts were good enough. And I ended up, I found a wrecked 97 Tacoma with a 2.7, the 3RZ.
Oh, yeah, that's the big 4-cylinder.
Big 4-cylinder, 2.7 liter. So I ended up riding with Chris Ridgway all the way to Albuquerque, New Mexico on a job, helped him drive, and we picked this thing up on the back of his big old gooseneck. And then we went from Albuquerque all the way back on the 40 to like Barstow, and then we turned. If you know your geography and you know where Loma Linda is, I was an hour from home. And then we went to Red Bluff, and then we went back home.
What?
He was on a job, and he had places to be that didn't necessarily promote my places to be. But anyway, we got home eventually.
Wow.
So I ended up using the rear end and the transmission and the engine out of that truck, and I built a chromoly tube chassis, MIG pulsed welded. Everybody said my car was going to break, and dude that owns it now still wheels it.
No shit.
15, 16 years later.
No shit.
But we pulsed MIG chromoly chassis at Extreme Performance, and I knew how to do it, and I trusted that what we were doing and what I was taught there was going to work out, and it seemed like it did. So that was my first buggy. It took me probably a year and a half, somewhere around 03 to somewhere around 05 to build that rig.
Okay.
And 9 months later, I sold it to a gentleman named Nolan Grogan from Texas, and I started over again. And that was about when those of you who have followed along for years and years, especially pirate people, know the Caddy-on dubs.
Right.
This youngster, Matt, came along, and he was friends with Nolan, and he was part of the Land Cruiser crew. And Nolan said, have Randy build that rig. So he brought that thing to me, and we put it together in my little 2-car garage in Colton.
So you're starting to get a name at this point.
Nolan dubbed it the Randy Built because he didn't know what else to call it. And if you look up here on the wall and check out the very first panel, it says Randy Built.
It does say Randy Built at the top.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. We'll get a snapshot of that.
Nolan named my program early on. I never really liked it, but I didn't know what else to call it. So I called it Randy Built.
There you go.
And we raced the Caddy-on dubs in the 2008 King of the Hammers.
Wow.
Okay.
You were asking about how I got into King of the Hammers. The Tacoma-powered buggy. I ended up meeting a dude on Pirate named White Bro with a Fro, and Shane Henry and I became...
Wait. White Bro with a
Right
fro?
Bro.
There was all kinds of
with a
great
fro.
names on Pirate back in the
Wow.
day. Yeah.
He had an afro, and he was a white dude, so he called himself the White Bro with a Fro.
It was very apropos. Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
it all rhymes. God damn.
So during the 9 months that I had my car running before I sold it, we did a ton of wheeling. And we were jabbering earlier about wheeling trails. And Shane and I passed Dave Cole on Sledgehammer, and we went down the sand slide and back around, and we passed him again on Sledgehammer.
While he was still climbing up Sledge.
Well, he was still there, and then we went around, and I think we passed him for a third time. And I think they made it, I don't know, 500 feet up the trail or something like that.
Wow.
That's how we used to wheel, just as hard and fast as we could. Just need to check off trails mentally, physically, whatever, however you want to think about it. Just go out, and it's a sense of satisfaction. It's weird, but like to run trails.
But it's you against the trail. You're not against anybody else per se. You're just trying to conquer the trail and do it as fast as you can at that point.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
The trail, myself, the machine,
Right.
you name it. It's a sense of pride in the vehicle that you built and what it's capable of, and testing it to the max.
Sure.
And testing your own skills. And we would run trails super hard and fast, but we'd also find all kinds of little offshoot lines. I've got a bitchin' line on Wrecking Ball that I'm positive I was the first one to ever run it. You get a quarter of the way up in there and turn left up this little chute, and it's still nasty today, just as nasty as it ever was. And
so it's the culmination of all that, right? Like, so, we've talked about this on the podcast before. I mean, there's a lot of bolt-on stuff today where people can, with minimal skills can improve their rigs and go out and wheel, and that's great. Gets
Especially
them out
for
on the
the
trail.
JKLJ crowd.
Yeah, exactly. The latte machine.
it's ridiculous how capable those
It really
station
is.
wagons
It really
are.
is how turnkey they are.
Station wagons, yeah.
Grocery getter, mama car.
But my point is there's not a lot of people in this day and age. There are several people that have built their rigs and stuff, but to design, build, actually go out and wheel and conquer an obstacle is one thing, and then you take it a step further and actually race this thing. I mean, that's just taking it to a whole nother level. But I get it. I built my rig with my dad, and it's just super satisfactory to go and climb an obstacle that you're looking at and going, there's no way we're going to make it up this. And then it ends up, you find a line and make it up. Okay, so now you just tested this rig that you built. You tested your skills as a driver, and then it's like, what an accomplishment. I mean, that's just, I get it. I get it. I've never been at the King of the Hammers level, but I get that, that satisfaction of building something and actually going out and wheeling the crap out of it and having fun with it. So, so this evolved over the years for you to racing status.
Well, yeah, obviously that's a level we've not achieved, and I don't think I'm ever going to achieve that. So, yeah.
No, you're not going to race King of the Hammers?
No.
You should try it.
Yeah, you should try it.
You wouldn't be the oldest.
Well, do you want me to just whip out the credit card and send it to you, or what?
He'll build you a car.
Did you take your ride here at the last KOH? Weren't you supposed to take a ride?
I was supposed to take a ride, but I had to depart early, and so I did not get my ride.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
So I got my chit. I'm still waiting for the chit. So who just chimed in?
That? Who is that just jumped on the mic here? This is a good intro to Nick Bailey, crew chief for Randy Slawson's team here.
That's right.
So, Nick, how the hell are you? Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah,
glad
thanks,
you can make it because you were supposed to be here hours ago.
Yep. Better late than never, I guess.
And you got a lot of catching up to do drinking wise because we've been here for a that's
Yeah, I'm looking at that shelf and I'm glad it's not empty yet. So,
No.
We'll save some for you.
Some were full when we started, though.
hey, that's
Some
awesome.
were brand new. So welcome. But anyway, okay, so let's now that we got the whole crew here, so we got Slawson and his crew chief, Nick.
That's right.
And so starting to talk about King of the Hammers, Randy, and so 2007 was the first King of the Hammers. And you were sitting in a right seat. So how did all that come about? And I know it was like a really small event, racing for a pack of Coronas or something. Or what was the deal there?
It was definitely a beer bet. I don't remember what the brand was. So Dave called me that year. I was working at the Fab School as an instructor, and he said, "I've got this plan. I want to do this race, and I'd like to. It's invite only. There's only going to be a select few, and." I'd like you to come out. And I was like, man, I would love to, but I just sold Nolan my rig. So I believe he had also invited John Reynolds, and I ended up teaming up with John.
Right.
And John had the only $100,000 rock crawler at the time that I was aware of.
Wow.
And he liked wheeling it hard. And I knew the hammers at that time better than anybody around, I felt like. And I think John felt that too. So we went out and practiced a time or two and ran some trails together. And then Dave, on the day, they gave us a course map and they told us what we needed to do. We needed to go to this point and this point and this point and sign the books at the beginning and end of trails.
Okay.
So that they knew that we'd been there, and we ran it. And we beat Tracy Jordan by a pretty good margin. I couldn't tell you what it was. This year in the spring, we did a little unrace.
Right. With the COVID going on.
Right.
Yeah.
And Dave called me up again and he said, small group, Kings and a select few others are getting the invite. And we're going to rerun the original King of the Hammers race.
The OG.
The OG 13 race. So it was pretty neat. I got to go down there, take my race car. It was a good shakedown. I built a brand new car, and we hadn't finished King of the Hammers, and it was super frustrating. And I linked up with Jason at TubeWorks, and he helped me rebuild my diff, and we put it in the car. And so it was a good little it was a race, but it didn't matter. It wasn't for points or money or anything. So we got to go down there and shake it down a little bit. But I think we cut the original winning time in half.
What? Damn. What?
From 12 or 13 or whatever years ago it was when we ran it originally. It's
13 years later.
Fun to see the evolution. And it was fun for me to go because I've raced every single King of the Hammers since the beginning. I'm the only guy, I claim, I'm the only guy that's been in the car at every
single King of the Hammers race.
There's been the first one in 7, and then the 2010 King of the Hammers. I was also in the wrong seat, the right seat, but the wrong seat. But every other King of the Hammers, I've been there in the car. So it was fun for me to take that little trip down memory lane and remember, I didn't remember. I've run all of them, so they all run together for me. But it was cool to see, we ran out the desert to Outer Limits, and we ran up Outer Limits, and we ran over to, I don't even remember what it is right now. But it was just fun to rerun it, however many years later. And
well, yeah, I mean, the complete difference in the vehicles. I mean, the horsepower level, the suspension level.
But that's a great evolution of where we've come four-wheeling, and all this technology and stuff. And
the low ramp. Did you even have low rances back then? I mean,
no, we didn't. We had a piece of paper that said "Go here, go there." I think it was legitimately a map, a Google Earth printout that showed the trails or something to that effect. But yeah, we definitely didn't have Lowrance.
Thinking about the technology that goes into the cars from the OG days to today. I mean, how many different cars have you run throughout the years? I mean, did you run the same car numerous years in a row? I mean, we'll get into that, what happened in the most current year, but I'm just out of curiosity for the listeners.
So I think we were talking about 2008. I ran the Caddy on Dubs car.
Mm-hmm.
The Caddy on Dubs car was a little blip where I needed to make some money between my first buggy and the first bomber car.
Okay.
And so I helped this young man build this car. And towards the end, we were having a ton of trouble with a company called Portal Tech, who's later become the company that stole Doug's axles.
Oh my God, we're bringing up Doug.
Podcast right
there. That's great.
I could have saved a lot of people a lot of headache, but nobody listened. So,
jeez. All right,
those Mormons are crookeder than a $3 bill.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Anyway, how'd we get off on that?
Well, we were talking about how the cars have evolved. How many different cars?
The Caddy on Dubs. So I ended up building the first bomber. I quit the fab school right when my wife graduated nursing school, and we got our first little house, and I had a little 2-car garage. And I'd been slowly collecting tools, and I set it all up in this little garage. And it took me about 6 months. And my cousin Dustin came down, and he had BenTech, and I was completely computer illiterate. So we had my jig sitting right over here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And we had my axles, and we had the motor and the trans and the T-case. And we set all this stuff up on the jig in its approximate location at full bump, and we started bending tube.
Wow. There you go.
And we would measure out, and we'd design a tube in BenTech, and we'd bend it, and we'd set it on the chassis, and be like, yeah, that looks cool. And we'd design the next
that
tube.
Looks cool.
And a week later, we basically had the first bomber chassis.
Wow.
And he went back home, and I went to work lacing it up and building suspension mounts and making it all happen. And that fall, October, we took it to Off-Road Expo, and it was the first car that was legitimately built, designed, intended to be a King of the Hammers race car.
Okay.
Wow.
But was it a bomber chassis? So at the time that got done, is that what you were calling it, or did the name come along sometime after?
So going into it, I had a bunch of different ideas, and Dustin and I had been rapping about it and coming up with different things. Fred Williams had called some rig, he'd called it a trophy crawler, and that really rung to me. I really liked that term because it
has
brought
a good ring to it.
It brought the trophy truck aspect to rock crawling.
Sure.
And so I really liked the whole trophy crawler idea, but I could never quite make it work. Dustin said, well, just make it TKO, trophy crawlers only. Oh. And I didn't like the TKO thing.
Well, it's like total knockout.
Yeah, well, that's
losing.
Yeah, TKO,
so you don't want to lose.
Right. So we kept scheming, kept building, kept thinking, and I was going to call it the Desert Bomber. I was like, because it's for bombing across the desert.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
And eventually we just shortened it down to the Bomber.
Bomber.
And then at first the car was the Bomber. And then with time and evolution in the second and the third, whatever it was, I guess by Bomber 2, we called it Bomber Fabrication.
Yeah.
So then I'd found a website online that designed logos, and I put up a bounty of $40 or something, and some foreigner drew that logo, and I was like, that's it. That's
There it
exactly
is.
what I wanted.
Oh, that's awesome.
I didn't know that I wanted it, but that was it.
That is cool.
It is cool. Absolutely.
It's very simplistic.
Yep.
It's very noticeable.
And now iconic.
Iconic.
And
Yep.
now iconic. So there's the
we
birth
went
of the
way
Bomber.
around, but your question earlier was how many cars, how many Bombers, how many race cars, how many?
Yeah, I mean, how many? Yeah, exactly. How many cars have you? Different chassis have you driven in King of the Hammers? I mean, because I'm sure you've driven the same car multiple years at some point.
Right. Bomber 1, I met Ben Napier after King of the Hammers that year in 2009 when I raced that car the first time. And I gave him a test ride in it, and he ended up buying the car, and it wasn't 9 months old at the time.
How much you want for that?
Everything's for sale, right?
I think I got $62,000 for that car.
Wow, baby.
And to me, that was a ton of money.
Sure.
I think I'd built it for half of that.
Ooh, profit's good.
Yep. And 6 months of my life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, but there's a lot of R&D that went into that, and I mean, it's not like, you can't just say cost and here it is. I mean, there's a lot of talent that went in behind that, right?
Right. Back when I was young and cutting my teeth wheeling, I always used to, every time I would come across something on the trail that was broken, I'd be like, what happened?
Why did it break?
Why did it break? What was the brand? What was the gear? What was the ratio? What was this? What was that? And I always stored that information away. The difference between a smart man and a wise man is a smart man learns from his own mistakes, and a wise man learns from other people's mistakes.
I like that.
And I never had the money to make all the mistakes for myself.
Right.
There you go.
So I pride myself on that a little bit, that, I just really, really, as much as I was playing and fucking off, I was paying attention to what everybody was doing and how it worked and why it worked, and making sure that when I did it, it worked right.
And taking note of what didn't work.
Well, and it's so true because, all the years that I've been wheeling, you see stuff that works and stuff that doesn't work on the trail, but it's interesting, and everybody gets up the trail at some point. Maybe not all the Toyotas, but whatever. So it's
They just need to use all their torques.
They run out of torques. They run out of talent. But anyways, it's like, okay, why did that vehicle do better than this vehicle or whatever? And some of it's dumb luck, rock movement, whatever. But you start paying attention to the things that work out on trail. And, I was talking with one of your shop guys here, Adam, earlier about quarter elliptical. That was like all the rage back in the day. And then look where we're at now with this 3-4 link system and coilovers and all this stuff. And it's just it's so cool to see the evolution of the technology and everything that goes into just crawling over frickin' rocks and conquering these trails.
Well, I mean, also thinking about, looking at the Legends car that race in Everyman Challenge. 10 years ago, those were the 4400 cars.
Yeah, they were the bomber.
They were the cream of the crop. They were the top dogs. Now they're Legends cars. They wouldn't be able to compete
retired
at the high
4400
level.
cars.
So, I mean, it's definitely changed. Now you have full bypass shocks, you have multiple shocks, you've got, coilovers, and like Jason said, link suspensions, and the sky's the limit, right?
Yeah, going back to the COVID race earlier last spring, the John Reynolds car was invited. The gentleman that owns it in Texas brought it out for the race, and they raced it again. The winning car from 12, 13 years ago, whatever it was. And looking at that car and the group of cars that raced was hysterical.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
It was a treehouse. Narrow, tall, just a monster truck. Like, not a race car.
That's great. Oh shit. This chair is horrible.
It's special. I got it just
It's
for
a
you.
special chair just for you.
It's broken now. Shit. Anyway. All right. Well, I'm out.
You just keep switching the panel over there.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's cool. So let's KOH. Okay, so you raced the first race as co-dog. From there, and you've raced every race. Chris, stop moving. God damn it. Trying to record a podcast here. Don't serve
fucking
Chris any
around.
more whiskey.
I'm sorry.
See?
Shit, I need more whiskey.
I don't think so.
I'm going to the floor. He's making
There
me
we
nervous.
go. Yeah, he's going
I
down.
can't even drive my chair right. Shit. Oh, no.
So, leading up to your first win in 2013. So let's go there. So, and you and your brother crossed the finish line. So, tell us about it. What do you got? What the first time you won King of the Hammers, and that was what
2013.
Yeah, 2013.
That
So
was a long
6
time
years
ago.
after your first time of co-dog of King of the Hammers, your first race. So
King of the Hammers, I have led almost every single one of them at one point or another, either on corrected time or physically led.
okay,
And for some reason, I've pointed this out to my buddy Scott Hartman. We joke about it. Odd years, I won in 7. We didn't do good in 8. I almost won in 9. I didn't do good. I co-drove in 10. We were winning in 11 until the transmission gave up. I think that was the wrong year. We were really doing great in 11. I had a giant lead. And I had a silly issue with my cooling system. And then we fixed it and we caught back up to second place, and the fuel system cavitated, vapor locked, and we had major issues with that. And we ended up finishing 4th, which was a finish, but not the finish that we were
not
ever
the
looking
finish
for.
you wanted.
12, we lost the transmission. And then somewhere around October time, Jake Hallenbeck came to me and he was like, I'm going to buy that car. And I was like, it'll be for sale after King of the Hammers. And he's like, no, you don't understand. I'm going to buy that car and I need it now.
Wow.
What? So
He
this
didn't have any money to back it up, but he needed it now. So I ended up selling the car to him. The Bomber 1 car, I think we said 62. I think I got 65 or something for the second Bomber car. And Jake bought it and raced it several years. But my buddy Kyle and I built a car. We between October-ish at Off-Road Expo when Jake bought the car, and the end of November we had some kind of project we were working on that needed to be finished up. And Kyle and I built a car in 6 weeks from straight tube to on the dyno.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it's probably
Wow.
the hardest either one of us have ever worked. The most hours.
Your wife's nodding her head. She never saw you for 6 weeks.
So this is
The KOH
this is
widow,
the 6
yes,
weeks lead up.
exactly.
This is before KOH 2013.
Correct. 2012 still.
So you sold your car in
October.
October. So that's 3 months, basically 3.5 months before the 2013 race.
Yeah.
And you needed to build a new car.
Yeah, it turns out you need a car.
Well, yeah.
I'd missed it once and I was determined that we weren't going to miss it again. So I called up Spider Tracks and I said, hey, I need a couple of housings. And they said, it'll be 6 weeks. And I was like, no, you don't understand.
No.
The car's going to be on the dyno in 6 weeks. And they said, we don't care. That's your problem. And so I ended up calling up John Curry, and he was super gracious and let me come down to the factory and weld my own chromoly 9-inch fab housings together on site.
No kidding.
And he really bent over backwards for me that year and machined some reed knuckles to accommodate his Curry axles and did all kinds of weird stuff that a normal businessman especially a guy like John.
Yeah.
He doesn't need me.
He doesn't need to do that for, yeah.
But he really, and this is before I won my first King of the Hammers, you know? He believed in me, and he bent over backwards to make sure that things were good for me so I could go racing.
That's very cool.
And I had my own little set of morals, or whatever you want to call it. I went out to pick apart and got TTB Ford hubs, and I had $13 hubs with junkyard wheel bearings.
So
on.
I've heard about that. So you had $13 hubs.
all
You
four
won
corners.
King of the Hammers with $13 hubs.
Yep. On my
awesome.
kingpin style spindles with my kingpin reed knuckles, and I think John thought I was crazy, but he helped me get it all
He's
together.
like, no, let's see what you got, kid.
So that must have been half price Saturday.
Exactly.
You know, that was before Obama.
Oh, there we go. All right, getting the politics in here.
Politics.
I love it.
Nice. Boom.
That's so good.
So, yeah, I've joked about winning King of the Hammers on the smallest budget ever known to man. It's really not a joke. I do it every year. I race on a much smaller budget than all the guys that I'm competing against. And it just goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where I don't have the money to make all the mistakes. I got to pay attention to what the other guys are doing.
Sure.
And the parts that work and the parts that don't. And I pay attention to where I can scrimp and save. And then there's the other places that you just have to spend the money. And one of those places where you have to spend the money is shocks.
Yeah.
Well,
And
yeah.
I got very, very fortunate. When Ben bought the first Bomber for me, we took it out in the desert. And somewhere along the line, I don't remember why, he decided that the Fox shocks were junk. He wanted to put King shocks on it.
Okay.
And so I tagged along on a shock tuning adventure with King, and I saw the difference between how King handles that situation and how I'd been handled with Fox. And so the next car that I built, I put King shocks on it.
Okay.
And I bought 2.5 3-tube bypasses and 2.0 coilovers, and it was the best I could afford. And we went really, really fast.
And it worked.
But during that whole deal, Lance King was out in the desert. Lance was the owner, founder of King Shocks.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, Lance took a shine to my poor boy ways and my determination to go fast. And he said, you know what you really need on that car is some 3.0s. Like that
Well,
would
there you
really
go.
make a huge difference over your
Yes, it
2.5s.
would.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yes, it would.
And I said, man, I sure wish I could afford them. And he said, I'm going to build them for you. And that was the beginning of some good times working with King.
So shout out to King Shocks right there.
I'm getting a little choked up just thinking about it.
That's cool.
But the King family has treated me amazing. And, you know, I've spent more time hanging out with that crew and shock tuning with the Rebay than just about anybody. And my cars are extremely light on the top and extremely heavy on the bottom. And Brett King, Lance's son, used to laugh about trying to tune these beach balls. You know?
Beach balls.
He'd call us rock crawlers all kinds of names, and you just can't tune a beach ball, he used to say. But it's been fun for me, you know, we've made the whole evolution now from, you know, everybody used to joke about us being rock donkeys, and now half of these trophy truck guys are like, man, how do I get on this program? Let's go rock crawling. This looks awesome.
It looks like a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, Cam Steele, you know, he's the one that's crossing over from, you know, trophy trucks.
lot of
and,
them.
of course.
There's a number.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Some
sure.
of them still keep it in the shadows.
That's right.
They're out there. You know who you are.
Yeah, you know.
Right.
But yeah, King, they built me some 3.0s, and we were getting ready to come to Reno for the first time and race the, what are they called the Stampede back then.
Yep. Wild West Motorsport Park, right?
Way before that. It was out at
before
the
that.
whorehouses.
Yeah.
The Mustang Ranch.
Ole talked
Mustang.
about that place.
What?
Getting ready for that race, I got my 3.0s, and I put them on, and I hated them. It didn't work. It didn't ride anything like I expected. And Aribe said, man, they didn't build these the way I told them to. I wanted some Gordo tubes. And we ended up putting the 2.5s back on, and I think I finished 4th at that race. We probably led that one too at some point, but lots of issues led to stopping to put the serpentine belt on a dozen times because the water pump pulleys started leaking. The shaft, the seal on the front of the water pump. Super rare on LS. I've never had it happen since, but we had a lot of drama with that day.
Yeah.
I think I cracked the oil pan too. We finished that race. The car had barely any oil and not a lot of water. And
Wow.
The motor survived that particular race. It saw a few more outings, but it went chickadee China not too long after that.
Wow.
Oh, shit. That's good.
All right. Help me get back on track.
Help me help you. All right. So I think we're at 15.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the 15 win.
Well, we were still back at 13, right?
I know. 13.
We were trying, right. So
We
we
were
covered
trying.
ground up until 13. We can get into 13.
Yeah. So back to $13 wheel bearings and hubs and all that.
Junkyard parts.
Kyle and I, burned the midnight oil on that job, getting that car ready for that race. And we showed up and we did our shock tuning and we had a great car. And my brother and I, Mike was co-dogging for me and we cruised around. I think I got a flat at one point. He and I jumped out and changed it. And at one point the car got really loose. I think we broke a rear sway bar. But for the most part, we just had a really fairly uneventful day and finished in 1.
There you go.
And obviously that was, a dream come true.
Your first win.
That was what we've been shooting for from day one was, that big W. So it was a ton of fun. And then immediately after we got a bunch of orders, I built 2 cars for the Wagner family, Cody and his dad.
Yep.
And then I built a car for my Indonesian buddy. And pretty well the same time we started the year before, we started another car in late November and did the whole thing over again, smashed out another race car.
Jeez.
That time, Spider Tracks took a little more
Notice. Yeah, like, hey, wait a minute.
Oh, we missed an
Your
opportunity.
lead time just look. We got some axles available for you. Some axle housings available.
So we ended up using their full program, their knuckles and brakes and unit bearings. They'd finally got the unit bearing really dialed in where it was something I was willing to be a part of.
Okay.
And we had a really rough day racing that year. We broke just about everything. We broke a wheel and broke a rotor and broke a caliper and broke a brake line and broke. Trying to remember what all it was. I think car ran on 7 cylinders. The power steering hose ruptured. We finished 8th or 9th after just the most horrific day you could imagine. The car was super fast, and I was super proud of our efforts despite all the trouble that we had. I knew that the car was way, way more capable than the previous generation, the one we'd won with. So that car, you'd asked me earlier how many times I'd raced switch cars or something to that effect. That car we raced again in 15 and we won.
Oh, okay.
And we had not the smoothest day we could have possibly had. The O2 sensors went bad.
Oh, geez.
Freaking thing ran out of gas. We were getting 1.3 miles a gallon.
Oh, jeez.
My brother, we just completely lucked out that we ran out of gas like a mile before the pit. And Mike was able to run to the pit and grab 5 gallons of gas and run back to the car and gas us up. And we were able to get to the pit and gas up completely. Because if we'd have been a mile after the pit, he'd have had to run twice to get gas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Let's have that conversation go. Hey, we're out of gas. Co-dog, guess what? Get running,
So-
boy.
Coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll take 5 more, please.
So that was, I think, the end of lap 2. And from then on, we stopped at every pit and filled up gas. And we were using everybody else's gas. We didn't bring enough gas to finish the race
No
at the mileage
kidding.
that we were making.
And this because the O2 sensor and
The
you,
O2 sensor.
lost
Yeah,
your
just-
tune and the whole thing was
Yep.
whacked out. Yeah.
It went, safe. Rich.
Safe
That-
mode, run a
Yep.
ridge.
So-
if Josh had been there and been a part of our program at that point, he could have told us to just unplug the thing and would have gone into open loop. It would have been sweet, but
Live and learn, right?
And that was the one where all that fuel, all that lovely unburnt fuel was getting in your eyes. And
oh man, some of the canyons, there'd be a tailwind and it would blow all that noxious gases,
Unburnt
Just
fuel right
unburnt
back
fuel
at you.
right back up in our pumper and into our face. And
Jesus.
we're just choking on gas fumes.
it smelled like an old Jeep going down the Rubicon.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I remember.
I thought it'd be
you
an
go.
old Toyota.
Not a Toyota, of course.
Not a Toyota.
Yeah,
of
Toyota.
course. See, Nick has a Toyota. I have a Jeep. See how that works, Chris?
Yeah, I have a Jeep. I'm just saying.
But somehow, despite running out of gas, we ended up winning King of the Hammers in 2015.
So that's number 2.
Number 2 on that car, we went back in 16 with the same car. Mm-hmm. And we just linked up with Josh. He killed our O2s permanently, deleted them from the system.
Oh.
And then during that whole testing, tuning, experimenting with the computers with him, I had a spare computer for the LS that he flashed. And for some reason, I was changing back and forth between the two. And I didn't get the thing plugged in all the way.
Oh.
It was a red blue. The plugs are 6 inches long. I got the bolt started and threaded it in. It was tight. It was good, but it didn't pull the end of the plug all the way into contact. And it was contacting enough to run part of the time. And
But there's no vibrations racing, so
no vibrations.
Not at all.
So we knew there was a problem testing, and it was King of the Hammers week. And we're looking at things, and we pull the throttle body off, and there's the shaft is loose and the throttle body. It's one of these China fucking deals. The TPS.
Love it.
We pull it off, and it falls apart in pieces. There's like multiple pieces in my hand. So Josh is like, there you go. There's your problem. So we got another TPS and we put that on and it ran great for the 5 miles that I tested it. And then we started King of the Hammers and it didn't run great anymore. So it took us, fortunately Josh was there and diagnosed it. It took us an hour or two in the pits and we finally figured it out and got it running. And then I think I had the fastest third lap time of anybody on track and finished. It was 8th or 9th. Those 2 years, I couldn't tell you which one was which. But another top 10 finish despite a huge amount of downtime.
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, so wait, we got to go back to 2015 when there was an incident in a canyon. Elvis with the
It was
what's
2013.
that? No, I thought it was 15.
No, it was 2013.
Oh, it was
sorry.
2013.
Yeah,
Oh, boy.
the first race that I won, we were leading. And when we came around there, it's a very iconic moment. Everybody's seen it on
Yeah,
YouTube.
it's gone viral.
Yep.
Indeed.
So we were rolling into that canyon. It was literally the last trail that we had to run before we had to do another 40 miles of desert or whatever
Yep.
it was back to the finish line. And as we came around the corner, we start seeing people. Mike gets on the siren. That's his favorite toy. That's the thing that he gets to control.
It's all him.
Yeah. So you see on that video us come wailing around the corner into the canyon.
Hauling ass.
And everybody else, before we get there, it's the Rambling Man. Everybody's donkeying around.
Yeah.
John Webb's got
John Webb's got
speakers on his light bar or
Right.
speaker
Yeah,
bar.
got all the speakers going. Yeah.
And nobody's doing anything fast. These guys are getting lapped. They think they're racing. They think they're doing great. They're getting lapped, right? And being the lead dog racing is very much like being the oldest child. I don't know who all's experienced that, but you get experimented on because nobody expects you to be there. Nobody expects you going the speed you're going. and everybody looks at you like you're a fucking asshole for driving fast.
That's a good analogy. The oldest child. I like that.
It is.
So we roll in there, and I was telling you earlier about this. I wave my hands around and signal to these guys, what the heck are we doing here?
Yeah, where am I going?
And you'll see on the video, they scramble to the driver's side of the car, which means to me to go to the passenger side. So I hit that line, and at first it looks sweet, but it's a little shaly. And then there's
a little loose.
There's this one prominent rock that catches my rear diff. And as soon as it hangs my rear diff up, I just slide down into their car.
Right.
And I'm sitting there spinning and making dust, and they're telling me to back up. Well, my brother taught me something very important in racing. Once you commit to a line, you make it work.
Pick it and stick it.
Pick it and stick it.
That's right.
So I'm sitting there looking at the passenger front tire on that rig, and I'm like, there's some traction right there. So I steer into that tire, and like clockwork, it pops right up. The problem is, I don't get the front tire. I get the front third of their car.
Uh-huh.
The hillside just slides me down, and their car makes great traction. So my getting this confused. My rear driver tire went down his front driver tire.
Yeah.
As I exited his vehicle.
Yeah.
Wow.
I got a big piece of it, which wasn't over the hood. Wasn't really what I was aiming for.
But it worked out.
But it worked out fine.
Well, it's like, hey, and that's the thing, and this is, the other drivers have done this too. It's like you break down in the middle of the trail, you become part of the course.
Exactly.
I'm going to go on just a little tiny rant right now.
Okay, great. We love rants. Krista, you love rants.
I love rants.
All right, go.
Why can't wheeling be a gentleman's sport like golf? When I come across some asshole broken in the trail, and the very fucking first thing they think about is their selfish ass and how they're broken, and they park their junk in the middle of the trail.
Well, yeah.
Limp your shit to the side for a minute and let everybody else have their go.
Right. I like it.
That's not how it works, man. They got to put her up the trail.
Use some Factor 55, some Warren winches to get out of your way, right, Nick?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you are not necessarily the only one in the woods on that day.
No,
right.
No, you're not. No.
Right.
And everybody else spent just as much money to be there as you did.
Exactly.
Be a little bit respectful.
Exactly.
There you go. There you go. I love it.
Truer words were never spoken.
I know. I love it.
Rant
That
off.
your win. Let's see some winning recovery skills, 'cause that's what you got left.
That's right.
It's such a great video. Look it up on YouTube if you haven't seen it, because it is a great video.
All you have to do is type in Randy Slawson runs over.
Yeah, car.
That's all you need.
Yeah, runs
Randy
over.
Slawson
You just
runs
Randy
over.
Slawson runs over. And then it comes
Uncle
out.
Google will finish the rest.
Yeah.
Okay, gotta love Google. And then you said you saw the guys after the race.
The fine gentleman from Colorado.
Fine gentlemen.
It turns out they were professional trail plugs. The next year
Trail
they were
tampons?
on
Trail
yes.
tampons, yes.
The next year they were the ones that Tom Ways ran over their winch line on back door.
Okay,
Same exact
same
car.
people.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
I've heard some other very nice stories about those gentlemen as well.
Oh, boy.
We'll save for a
All
later
right, we'll
date.
leave it there. That's great. Trail tampons. Hashtag trail tampons. Anyways, that's a great story. Love it.
So that was 2013.
2013.
Okay, so Jason was a little confused.
Well, it says 15 on YouTube.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, no, YouTube's never.
He was right there.
No, I know the man,
Right in
the
the
myth, the
middle.
legend's right there. So if he says 13, it's 13.
Report.
But I'm
Report
just
this
saying-
video.
I've got some more good stories on
Okay,
that.
go,
little one.
Randy.
So all I knew was on my radio, they were saying Shannon Campbell's coming for you, right?
Okay.
So we're doing everything we can, right? We've got a few miles of desert. We need to finish. We need to win.
Right.
So if you keep digging a little bit deeper on the old YouTube,
YouTube's.
the next the next thing that happened was Shannon showed up. Somehow the Colorado boys had fixed their junk enough to get it out of the way, but somebody else parked in the exact same spot. And
Perfect.
Shannon attempted the exact same pass.
Right.
Rolled his car over right on top in front of those guys and caught on fire.
What?
Oh, shit.
I hadn't heard that.
So fortunately for me, he spent some time
Upside down on fire.
Upside down on fire.
Doing some Ricky Bobby.
Ricky Bobby, I'm on fire. I'm on fire.
Oh, do you have his ultimate fire extinguisher? Jesus.
Yeah, it's all on YouTube. Check it out.
There you go.
It's all there.
So
Quality entertainment to
It
be had
is.
for sure.
So you've been to all the King of the Hammers.
Every single.
So I want to kind of, let's take a break from the racing for a minute. I want to kind of talk about the evolution of Hammertown, because back in the early days, there was no Hammertown, right? I mean, so it was just a circle of trailers and RVs and
Good old
tents.
Tents.
And I mean, so you've seen the whole evolution. And so what are your thoughts on that?
It's been a wild ride. In 7, when we went, they call it the OG 13. I don't think even 13 cars started. I think it might have been
12, right?
I think it might have been 12, but
Yeah.
the OG 12 just didn't roll like the OG 13. So they ad-libbed it a little bit. It was just, a few rigs and a few friends, some beer,
And a bonfire.
A couple
and a
bonfires.
just good old days. I remember in 8, there were 50 cars plus or minus, and it was like 49 miles or something, I think was the entire race.
Wow.
And that was longer than the 30 something miles we raced in 7. And that was the way things went. It was every year there was twice as many people and there was twice as many miles.
Twice as many, and then twice as many.
And they told 2 friends.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
they told 2 friends. And
49 miles in 8. I think it was 80 miles or something in 9. Maybe it was even more than that. Before you know it, it was 100, 120, 150, 170.
right.
Then, we hit 220, I think, one year. And I told Dave at one point, I was like, man, if you keep making it longer and harder every year, nobody's going to come back. Like, these dudes, they come here to finish.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of guys don't come here to win. They come here to finish. And if they don't think they have a chance in hell of finishing, why are they going to come?
Right.
And that was about the era that the mileage started getting shorter or kind of maintaining. It's been 200. It's been 185. It's been 205. It's been, it's just been hovering right in that 200 mile mark. But Hammertown just keeps growing and growing. I didn't hardly feel like COVID 2021 that it was much smaller than 2020 was.
Yeah. I feel like the number of spectators was definitely lower, and I didn't spend a whole lot of time in Hammertown, but it seemed like there were quite a few less vendors there. So
The vendors kind of got screwed.
Vendors got cut a little bit, but I mean, the overall feel of the event was still major.
high energy, no doubt. I'm not
And
saying
for
that.
Dave to make that happen and his team this year, unfreaking believable.
Oh, it was killer, no doubt.
And
I was hanging out with Dave after the race.
Yeah.
It wasn't immediately after. It was when they did the Kurt Leduc swap meet. And I wish I could remember exactly what his words were and exactly what the stats were. But before King of the Hammers, the local hospital was experiencing X number of COVID patients per week.
Right.
Okay.
And after King of the Hammers, it dropped to basically 0. So Dave's new claim to fame is he cured COVID.
Yeah, I love it.
Cure COVID, perfect.
And I was ecstatic that the event was happening, and then it happened, and then it didn't turn into a super spreader event 2 weeks later.
Much to everybody's chagrin.
Exactly. And there were so many, right? The
poo-pooers, for
newspapers, that all those articles coming out.
Yeah.
Oh, they're
LA
having
Times.
this race out in the middle of the fucking desert and blah, blah. And then, whoa, look what happened.
No,
we can actually still recreate out in the desert because nothing can live out in that desert. We've proved that now.
right.
Well, the election was over at that point.
Yeah,
Is the real deal.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean,
I agree.
It's just interesting. I mean, I've been going to King of the Hammer. I started my first year was 2016, I believe, and it was amazing to me the difference from 2016 to 2017 and the volume of people, the spectators, the number of RVs and campers out, Hammertown Heights, and just one of the things that really impressed upon me was I believe it was 2019 it was still pretty mellow, but then 2020, the number of people that were camping on the dry lake bed side of Hammertown that normally you don't want to camp
That's
out
the
there.
worst place.
But there were
Terrible.
The number of RVs and campers out there was mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
And then this year they weren't out there again. So that was an indicator to me that the numbers were significantly reduced.
Yeah.
I mean,
but still a lot of people.
there is a cell phone bush, so that's a plus.
The cell
Right.
phone
They
bush
got that
still,
perk.
still alive and well.
Sure,
Right.
sure.
God forbid you get a rainstorm, camp down
So-
there, and
No doubt. Right.
dry lake ain't so dry.
Well, I
You
mean,
may never get your rig off the lake bed.
but that's the thing. I mean, you look at like where we were camped up in Upper Hammertown Heights. At least for the most part, you don't have all the people transiting back and forth to go out to the trails, which
It's
is
a gated community.
it's,
The
Up
estates,
there, yeah.
right?
the estates,
yeah. Well,
the
we have
estates.
It's very
HOA
up
dues.
class.
Code, yeah.
You got to pay your HOA fees
Right.
and the whole deal.
Yeah,
But
garbage cans
Get
need
a
to be
view.
in, shortly after it's been picked up. Yeah.
But I mean, that's just the other side of the story. I mean, it's just, I know there's so much going on from the racer perspective, but from the spectator side, being us and also having the opportunity, media 2 years in a row, media in 2020 was super awesome. 2021, they, Emily Miller and the gang that were running media really kind of noodled things down because they had to.
So COVID, yeah.
I'm really looking forward to 2022 kind of being really go back to the glory days, if you will. And I don't know if there's been any conversation about that and hopes that, and I think it will be with the vaccines and everybody getting vaccinated and whatnot, but back to the racing. So 2015, you're a winner again. Cars. So you raced, then 2016 was not such a good campaign for you.
Yeah, we were able to pull it across the finish line, but not without using all of our power steering fluid and all of our ATF and all of our fire extinguishers, putting out the fires on the motor, and a bunch of drama.
Right. But it ended with hope, like Randy alluded to, right? I mean, they every year that's gone by, King of the Hammers has done a great job with the coverage, and obviously as technology increases, and especially this year with attendance, being a struggle for some people.
Yeah, but with the drones and the helicopter,
that's gotten better.
Epic,
so 2016 was the first time that I remember having real solid lap time data, and Randy, in the last segment alluded to it. So I'm an eternal optimist, and I'm always trying to keep Randy's, cheer him up a little bit. So that's when we got, I think it was posted on the Ultra 4 website. They had a Excel file you could download and you could pull lap times. And so he mentioned it, but shit got sorted out. It took a while. And after that point, we could pull from coming through finish line and going back to the, going back out for your next lap, we could pull individual lap times.
Right.
And so I put everything in an Excel spreadsheet and sorted it and sent it over to Randy. I'm like, hey, I know it sucked. We didn't finish where we wanted to finish, but check this out. You ran the fastest third lap, and the third lap is the hard lap, right?
Yep.
The third lap is the time to shine.
Right.
And so, going into the next year, that at least was a positive.
So you joined the team in what, 2015?
Yeah, so
correct?
when did you join?
Yeah, so I think we're thinking that probably sometime in the fall of 2015, I slid into Randy's DMs. I had moved to the Tahoe region, which is the beautiful view that Randy gets from his property.
Oh yeah, this
right
place
to the
sucks.
east.
I don't know how he tolerates it, honestly.
It's got BLM on one side and Tahoe and all those,
Yeah.
Right.
Rubicon, Ford Ice, and all that stuff to the west. So I had moved. I think Randy got in this area around 2012, something like that, and I came to the area in 2013. Oh, 14. So I was first, but keep that in mind, everyone. First. Anyway, so I got out here in 2013. Randy came along in 14. I had a job on the road, and so I'd be gone 3 weeks to a month working. Come home for a week. My wife had a normal job, so, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, she was working. So in my off weeks, I had extra time. So I found out this, at the time, 2-time King of the Hammers winner, Randy, is right down the hill in Gardnerville.
Sweet.
And so I said, hey, dude, I'm not a fabricator. Unfortunately, I'm a wheeler. I go to the King of Hammers every year, followed you, but I'm right up the hill. And I don't know, maybe one day I'll have something I can contribute to the team. So how about I come down and help you out, while my wife's at work. And so that fall of 2015, Randy was building his Legends car with the 4.3 DI engine. And so I spent those times when I could coming down and helping him put the car together. So I was at the race in 2016, just kind of a guy and being in the pits and all that kind of stuff. So as we started, that was first little place that I got to contribute there, putting some lap times together and giving some inspiring information as we moved the program forward. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And, we interviewed when we were at KOH. We interviewed Bailey Cole and Jason Shearer.
Sure.
And there's a similar story to Bailey Cole's situation with when he went at Crandon when he went into the water
submarine ride.
Oh, sure.
And the guy that was spectator was like, hey, I don't know anything about it. Can I watch you guys work on the car? And he's like, no, you can't watch.
Stand here and watch. And they're like, no, you need to come help. And then he became a crew chief.
Absolutely. So that's killer, man. I mean, so you're involved with the 3-time king, and that's super cool.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we live, like you say, it's a beautiful part of the country, but there's no vacancy in case anyone's curious. So we've maxed out.
No vacancy.
But, there's not a ton of folks around. And
Right.
I'm sure when Randy was in Southern California, right, there's a line of dudes outside that was willing to help out. But up here, you kind of got to take what you can get. So that's where I came from.
Perfect. So this was pity or no? It's like a stray dog. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all good.
Nick and I have had some pretty fun adventures together, that's for sure.
That's great.
That's cool.
Couple rolls, if we're keeping track.
More rollovers?
Oh, yeah.
There's
theme. Like I'm just I got a little tally here on my sheet, and it's over 100 rollovers that I've counted tonight. Am I anywhere close, Randy?
I don't think I've hit the triple digits yet. It's hard to say for sure.
Perfect. So let's fast forward a little bit and let's talk about 2021 COVID KOH. I mean, making it happen.
So this was obviously we all know it was a fucked up year, and so you as a competitor in KOH, and nobody knew if this thing was actually going to happen until like 3 months before. They were like, "Yeah, it's happening," and everybody's like, "Okay, maybe it will." But so were you preparing like it's going to happen, or were you kind of on the sidelines like, well, it might happen if it does, I'll race, or what? Where were you at in this whole thing?
I knew Dave's a stubborn SOB.
Right.
And I knew he was going to do anything he could to make it happen. I also knew that California is a pretty fucked up state.
Yeah.
You think?
And y'all's governor is a piece of shit.
Y'all.
Preach on, Reverend Randy.
Hey, man, you're preaching to the choir.
So I don't remember what kind of odds I was giving it. 75 for, 25 against, something. I don't remember. But we just prepped like it was going to happen.
It was happening.
This
in
is
your mind, it was happening.
And this is Randy's race, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
This is it every year. This is where he wants to be. So
Letting it all
rain or
hang
shine,
out.
if it happens, if
We're
it doesn't
coming.
happen, we better be ready.
Yeah.
That's right.
I told Dave, I think it was Sunday night or something after King of the Hammers when things were just starting to mellow out a little bit. We went to King of the Hammers. We took Krista's brand new rock crawler, the trail buggy, and we said, win or lose, we're staying half a week late. We're just going to mess around. We're down there, we're going to enjoy it. Once the race is over, go out and run some trails, have a good time. So we were down there, and we ended up migrating one evening over to the compound where Dave resides. Mm-hmm. And we were talking to him, and I said something to the effect of, my planning, everything about my program, it doesn't begin and end in December, January, like everybody else's year. It's King of the Hammers. That's it for me. Like everything from October, November, December, January, it's like, let's get the car together. And then everything after that is, let's take care of the customers that we put off while we're getting the car together. And then a lot of times it turns into, clear through October, I'm working on customer cars. And then even still, like this year, the Wicks brothers and I had some other customers down here. We're building axles and we're doing this and that and rebuilding things and putting tubes in cars. But everything in my world, all of my planning revolves around, KOH.
Yeah.
That's the big deal. That's my jam.
That's your jam. I like it. Well, apparently so. So you prep for it, and you get there on the lake bed, and everything was clicking. Any issues prior to the race? I mean, everybody goes through this stuff, and here you are. I mean, you know that place inside and out like the back of your hand, and so I got to assume, still on race day, I got to assume you're somewhat nervous when you get to that race line, but you know what to expect. You've been there, done that. You've won it, so you don't have that monkey on your back like, I need to win this race to prove myself, my car, everything. You've been there, done that, but what's that like leading up to the race and race day moments of,
Well, the important thing for everybody to know who hasn't won a King of the Hammers, once you've won one, all you want to do is win them all.
Win it.
And I want them all.
One's not enough.
And second place is the first loser.
Right.
Like,
that's exactly
we don't race
right.
for second
Ricky
place.
Bobby. Right.
Here we go again.
First loser.
Yeah.
Ain't first or last.
That's right. If you're not.
So you
first,
asked
you're
me
last.
if there was any issues or
Yeah, so
whatever
leading up.
in. So I got down there more, how do I put this, more confident than normal.
Okay.
The car was clean. It was in the enclosed. We went out with the trail buggies and started wheeling and fucking around. And one of my customers came by from Texas, and I don't know if he'd seen the car at all, but we pulled it out and I gave him a ride in it, and he was blown away. And then I took it out again, and I started noticing something about the car. It was not the car that I'd raced last.
Really?
The suspension was terrible.
What?
And when I had pulled the shocks off to have them serviced, I had noticed that I had some spring rate issues that I didn't like, and I thought that I was going to fix them, and I didn't. I fixed one problem and created a whole bunch of other problems, and the car really handled terrible.
Oh, no.
So I was very disgruntled, and anybody who's shock tuned, especially Hammers Week, knows that it's a crapshoot. You get what you get, and you make the best of it. And we worked and we worked and we made it worse and we made it worse, and then we made it a little bit better, and then Aribe left.
Said thanks.
And I was talking to my brother. He didn't end up being able to make it. He went down to Mexico and rode, I think he said 700 miles of single track in 7 days or something like
wow.
that.
Wow.
On his KTM or Husky 500, 501. But I was talking to him on the phone, and he was giving me a little pep talk. He's really good at that. He's the real racer in the family. I just play a racer on TV.
And this is a Friday night pep talk, right?
Yeah, the
Night before.
This is the night before the race.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's like, do your thing, blah, blah, blah. You know what you need to do. And I was like, the freaking suspension is terrible. I hate it. And I told him, it might be exactly what I need to win.
Wow.
I can't go fast. I can't hurt the car.
Okay.
And it's exactly how it turned out. We went out in the desert and ran as fast as I could comfortably run, which wasn't fast. It was 20 mile an hour off my pace.
Oh boy.
And then we got in the rocks and the car was fine. And we freaking just reeled him in all day long. We were never the fastest at any one point, but we were just clean and consistent.
Yeah, you can look back at it. It's like started 29th, and it was basically 10 cars a lap, right?
Really?
The year before, when everything was pretty dialed, and
50 cars the first lap.
Something like that. 50, right?
Wow.
This year, we're standing in the pits, Crista and I talking like, man, he only got 10, you know? Like, that's a big difference. I mean, we had a little ordeal last year with qualifying, and we ran a longer qualifying lap course than anybody else, and then we got penalized and had time at it. But anyway, long story short, we had more cars to pass last year. But this year, started 29th, got 10 of them on the first lap, approximately 9, 10, 10 the next lap, and 10 the third lap. And if you're up on your math skills,
there you are. You're right there. Yeah, so you, Nick, as the crew chief and monitoring all this stuff, I mean, what's the radio communication between you and Randy? And like, you just picked off 10 cars, and you're going into this. So what? You as a crew chief, what's your strategy in obviously keeping him motivated and positive, but shed a little light on that whole scenario of what you do out there on race day.
Sure. So after last year, racing at King of the Hammers is different. I've got a pretty decent amount of desert racing background,
right? In
some, mostly in Mexico, Baja 1000 and Best in the Desert series, stuff like that. King of the Hammers is a little different, the way that it's set up. Fixed pits, obviously, and you're running in and out of several consecutive valleys, and communication's a challenge.
Oh, absolutely.
So, if you talk, if you talk with any of the top teams, I mean, there's, Randy alluded to earlier, the whole, budget program that is kind of the familiar item that revolves around his team. And it's tough if you don't focus, if you're not really, spending time on comms, it can get tough. A lot of the top teams are using repeaters, and we've been blessed over most of Randy's racing career. Kyle, one of his employees, he talked about doing those real short-term bomber builds.
Yeah.
His father is kind of a radio nerd, which is awesome. And he's run like a manual relay, man on the mountain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
man style, like
weatherman. Yeah.
One channel simplex, but he's got the big antenna and he's sitting on a high point,
and he's making it happen. Yeah.
But unfortunately, last couple of years he's had other things going on, and we haven't had him on the lake bed. So we've been working around it. And last year was about the worst year since I've been around. We just had a hard time staying in touch with the systems in place. And Randy and I talked about it, and there were other things that went along with it, but there were certain items that he wanted some revised communication on. So this year we worked really hard on it. We worked with Dust Junkies for, well before I was around. Randy's been using them. Incredible pit support.
Sure.
They've got a setup right there on the short course, and they have a relay, and lucky for us, we got to partake in their relay for this year. So that was essential, because now all of a sudden we had that coverage that we'd been missing for a couple of years.
Sure.
Randy, made it pretty obvious what he wanted to hear, and we diversified our team a little bit to try to get the best data available. And earlier we talked about the drone coverage and video coverage and all that kind of stuff. So we used our every resource we had available to get up to date information and be able to pass that on. The way that this race went, kind of a slow and steady pace, I just gave Randy the best information I could as far as where he stood and what it was going to take, and the pace that he set, the other items he talked about that were kind of setting the pace for him.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's really what it came down to. Keep doing your thing. The leaderboard isn't really, in my mind, it wasn't factual what they were showing all race long. Any of the listeners that were watching this thing,
I mean,
it was
adjusted time,
difficult.
And it was a
the
little
timing
challenging.
system was so. I apparently it was accurate at the end of the day, but during the day there was updates that were so slow.
So watching it from home, I would see cars that were just hadn't moved, and I'm like, what's going on? What's happening? And
Right.
and then
Are they broke down? But they're not.
But you see them on the helicopter. They're zipping along through the desert. I'm like, what's going on here? You know?
So that made it tough because you kind of second guess yourself. I know that Randy's looking for more up to date information. I'm seeing him come by, right? Come through the pit. But at the same time, I have resources. My wife at home, thank goodness, she's tracking on the cell phone. I've got some other stuff, some top secret resources here. Trying to keep track of the race so that I can give Randy the best information I can. And then I see the leaderboard, and it's like, hey man, it's third lap, and Randy's in 30th. So anyway, so we just had to weigh all that out and kind of balance it, based on what we were seeing. And at the end of the day, that's what it came down to. Once halfway through lap 3, everything changed in a split second, right?
Well, yeah.
I mean, if you were watching the leaderboard, there was like a movement from 20th to
well, what changed in lap 3 was with King's Graveyard, right?
Yeah, right. Some real rock crawling came in, and we had looked at that, and that was
up sledge was a real deal.
I was going to say going up sledge was probably one of the biggest points. So talk about that, Randy. I mean, you've ran that trail up, down, sideways, everything, but.
When Dustin and I got to Plaqueline Sledge, it was the two Gomez brothers working on it. And I'm sorry, I don't remember who's who. The blue and white car he was winching.
That's Raul, right?
He did everything wrong. Dustin got out and was trying to spot him, and when Dustin would tell him to go left, he'd go right, and when Dustin would tell him to go forward, he'd go reverse. And when he was winching in, he was backing up, and he broke his winch line.
Oops.
And once that happened, he kind of realized he was screwed. He wasn't going to make it. So he jockeyed around and got out of the way and let his brother take a crack at it. And he didn't do a whole lot better, except he actually winched forward and drove forward at the same time and made it. So we just sat there. People were like, what is Randy doing? That doesn't seem like Randy to us.
Just to sit there and watch the show go down?
I was just taking a breather and watching.
Having a granola bar and just chilling out.
Yeah, just having some snacks, get a little hydration.
Nice.
And just watching how it went. It was pretty nuts. When I finally got to put wheels up on it, Bailey Cole was just behind me.
Okay.
And they decided to take a big gamble risk and started winching over top of me up towards the right of the normal way you would go, which if you go up there and look at it, it's massive rocks. People think if you're driving and you're winching, you can do anything.
Right.
You really can't. Like, these cars are heavy. You can't drag that 3,000 pound, 10,000 pound, 20,000 pound rock up the trail with you. It just isn't going to happen. Anyway, he struggled with that, and I got a little flustered and did some things that I wish I could take back to my rear driveline. Fortunately, Jim Reel builds a badass driveline, and it took it. But once we got through there, I told Dustin, I was like, "This is it, man. Now we're down to a drag race." Winch race with Gomez, because I knew that one of the Gomez cars had cleared. Mm-hmm. And so we went up over the hill and down into Graveyard, dead blow to be exact.
Yeah, dead blow.
And as soon as we got a quarter of the way into dead blow, there's Cam Steele, and we're back to doing that thing I hate the most, sitting and waiting. There was no good line around. They're winching, they're 3-wheel drive, they're broke. So they ended up, Dustin jumped out again and was throwing rocks and spotting, and they got him backed up just far enough that I could peel out up the side of the hillside in the shale and get around him.
Okay.
Kind of run over his passenger front tire, and kind of similar to some other stories.
Yeah.
But
there's a common theme.
Yeah, then from there on out, it was just rock crawling. That's my wheelhouse. Freaking crawled down dead blow and out into the desert. We got a little bit of a hint when we got to the bottom. Mr. Hartman, Scott, was down there cheering with a big group of people, and they're giving us the you're number one, like the good one, not the bad one.
Not the bad one. The good finger, not the bad finger. Okay, cool.
So I knew at that point that, the cars that were in contention along with myself were the cars that started on the first row and the second row. So I had a, 10-minute, 12-minute something corrected time on these guys. So we ran as quick and smooth as we could. Scott, I'm going to kill the last name. What's the PCI, Scott? Scott Steinrenner? Man, that's terrible. I'm sorry. Scott from PCI said at the finish line, he's like, I was watching you go and I was yelling at the screen, slow down, don't wreck now. You're winning. And I knew exactly what the car was doing. I had raced it 150, 180 miles that day.
Sure.
I could anticipate every stupid buck and kick. And so it was cool, but it wasn't cool. Like, I was laughing with Dustin as the helicopter was chasing us around the last desert lap. These guys are like, there's no possible way these guys are winning right now.
Wow.
Because we were so far off the pace we wanted to be on. Yeah, I was catching lap traffic, guys on lap 2, and I couldn't catch them in their dust. It wasn't safe.
Wow.
I can't reel them in when I can't read the terrain.
Sure.
So we're just donkeying along in their dust.
But luckily the announcers were covering for us. They're like, I'm sure that, they're on the horn with Randy right now, and they're telling him, hey, man, just pace yourself, right? You got this. You've got the physical lead plus corrected time, so just bring it on in. And, yeah.
That's awesome.
Good stuff.
What's it like with the chopper following you out there at times on the desert? And
that is one of the most surreal, exciting, I don't know what you want to call it.
I got to imagine.
When you're driving along through the desert as fast as you can go, and that dude's pacing you, and they're shooting back in your face, taking video of you driving along, it's pretty exciting.
I gotta, because you look at these shots that these guys are getting, and then you see the shots of the helicopter getting the shot, and that's fucking badass, man. There's some cool stuff out there.
If you start mixing in the cars that you're catching and passing as you're being videoed by the helicopter, it gets even more intense.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, it's just definitely a really cool experience.
And that's another great thing about King of the Hammers, because in all other desert racing, that only happens if you bring your own helicopter.
Right. Well, that's like,
you're one of those terrible hearse teams with a couple of choppers.
It's trophy truck day when all their helicopters are flying around.
Right.
It's like, well, what's that bird?
There's no,
so you either pay for it or you win.
Right, or you win, or you're in the lead. Exactly.
You're leading the
doubt.
hammers and the choppers on you. That's so cool. So, we were talking about earlier about a driver that in contingency that gave you a little pep talk. You want to talk about that, Randy?
Absolutely. So he's talking about Jason Shear.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of her.
Great first name.
Shearer.
Yeah. Shearer.
So the first time that Jason made a big impression on me was in 2009 when we raced King of the Hammers, and he and I swapped paint back and forth. And anytime it got tight and technical and off cambery in the quote unquote desert, he just drove away from me. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty awe-inspiring. It was a great lesson on what a car can do and what a car should do and how a car could look in those scenarios. So I've had a huge amount of respect for Jason for many, many years. I've said that, Jason's the total package. He's got the brains, he's got the skills, and he's got the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anybody else in the sport that can really wrap that up, bring that all together the way he does. Most of us either have money and we can't drive, or we can drive and we don't have money.
what does Justin say? He ran out of talent or something like that?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's part of it.
Pick two, right?
Take two. Yeah, no
Can't have
doubt.
it all.
I mean, that's racing, man. I mean, yeah.
So the incident you were referring to, Jason was in contingency, and as I was on the finish line, congratulating Chase Cabrera at his 4,800
4,800 win.
It was pretty awesome that
In a
he
Bomber
was
car.
able to bring that thing in. And his first time racing a real car, he'd raced golf carts, but he hadn't raced a real race car.
Wow.
But,
At 19 years old
Yeah.
to win.
yeah, 19.
To win Legends
Baby.
/EMC.
Sure.
It's rad. It's a dream for that kid. He's got a long racing career ahead of him if he pursues it.
Sure.
Keeps his nose clean, stays away from the dirty
Right.
girls.
Right.
Isn't that why they're all
Alcohol.
here? They want the girls, man.
Well,
Chicks
not
dig
if you're
it.
smart.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway, back to
Yeah.
Jason. So Jason was rolling through contingency, and he waved me over to his car, and he said, "It's yours, man. You're gonna win this thing." And I got a chill because I was standing at the finish line with a Bomber car that had just won, and the last time that I won, the Legends car that won the day before was a Bomber car.
no kidding.
Holy moly, that's like
Fun facts.
Yeah.
So it was one of those tingly,
Surreal
oh
moments.
shit moments.
Yeah.
And somehow we managed to pull it all together.
well, the planets were lining up.
That's freaking cool. I love all these backstories, you know? I mean,
yeah.
we see what we see on the YouTubes, the live feeds and stuff, but being there on the lake bed is absolutely outstanding, and getting to feel and hear these cars, rub elbows with these racers and stuff, but then to hear these backstories, what's going on behind the scenes in the cars, these conversations. This is great. This is great.
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
for sure.
They show you what the top payer wants you to see.
Well, and it's like anything else, right? It comes down to dollars and cents, and it's not a free enterprise out there to make this event happen. So they got to pay the bills too. I get it, but it's still, there's a lot of grassroots involved, and there's a lot of spectator friendly. KOH
that's
is
key.
like,
That's key.
yeah, it's super cool in that. I mean, all the pits, and all the stuff, and it's just cool how friendly it is to the spectators, to racers, fellow racers, everything. I mean, at KOH, it's one big family, and there's no other motorsports like this on Earth. It's very unique in that sense. Yeah, we got to pay the bills. Yeah, we got sponsors. We got big expenses, and unfortunately, it's starting to walk away from all that, but it's still there. Very, very.
Well, the approachability
very
of it.
cool.
I mean, being able to go into the regular spectators, being able to make it into the pits, and not so much get into your face, but being able to wave at you, and
Yeah.
And if you're in an accommodating mood,
that
like,
part
come
of
on
it is
in.
awesome to me. I
Absolutely.
love meeting my fans and talking to the kids that look up to me, and
I mean, yeah, how cool
signing
is that?
the RC cars, and
Yeah, you got
Giving away panels.
Yeah, and giving away panels and signing stuff. But I mean, how cool is it for like a 10-year-old kid to come up to you, Mr. Slawson, can you sign this for me? I mean,
Mr. Slawson is my dad.
yeah.
Enough of that.
But anyways, I mean, it's very cool, very cool. And you're just doing your thing and just making it happen. I mean, it's not like you signed up for all this, like, hey, I'm gonna, win King of the Hammers 3 times stuff. Yeah, you're gunning for it, but it's cool that this whole sport and how it's evolved, and from wreck wheeling. It started from wreck wheeling that
That's
we all love to do.
Wreck Wheelers year 1, right? I mean,
To like, how fast can we do these trails? And you passing Dave Cole 3 times on Sledgehammer and waving at him each time and going, hey.
Bye, Felicia.
Could have been where it all started.
Felicia. Bye, Felicia.
So, your wonderful wife was, when you guys were off wandering, looking at motorcycles earlier, mentioned something to me. About a relationship you have with somebody that Jason's very fond of or met recently, that you are friends with.
Jason who?
You.
Oh, shit.
So she
I thought we were
mentioned
talking
that-
Shearer or Jason somebody else.
You know Glenn Plake.
Not as well as I would like to, but yes, I'm aware of Glenn, and I've met him a number of times.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I just know that Jason had the opportunity. Jason Green.
Well, so we
had the opportunity to meet Glenn Plake down at Trail Hero. And anyway, I don't know how this all evolved.
I was there and interviewed him. Where were you, Chris?
I wasn't there, but it was just interesting. He says, "Oh, your wife's like, oh yeah, Randy knows Glenn really well," and I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah,
he doesn't live too far from here.
Yeah, he's got a house not far from here.
Yeah.
right."
Right
LaHontan.
across the street, you got that BLM. I mean, you could ride there tomorrow.
Yeah, we could
In a Bomber.
We could definitely take the Bomber over there to
Yeah.
his place.
Be no big deal.
Yeah.
No shit. So he's super close.
So I first met Glenn Plake at the Fab School. Glenn's
Okay.
friends with Troy Johnson, who owns Fab School.
okay,
And Glenn brought this VW dune buggy looking thing down to Fab School, and we worked on it for a week or so, getting ready for them to go down and pre-run for Mexico. And he had his big old semi
Yeah, Big Red.
coach thing, whatever it
Red.
is.
a big
Okay.
red. Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to remember if I met his wife on that
Kimberly.
one or later on. But Glenn reminds me of my Aunt Pam, Dustin's mom.
Okay.
They're just the same personality. They're like
Happy-go-lucky.
happy-go-lucky. We can do
No bad days.
anything. No, bad days.
Right.
Like 110% energy nonstop.
Yeah.
I'd like to see them together. If you get them both on the sauce just a little bit. I don't think Glenn drinks, so that wouldn't work out.
No, he doesn't anymore.
Oh no.
He's non-alcoholic beer.
But the two of them are like long lost cousins. I'm positive.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, God, that'd be great.
Aunt Pam's my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Glenn's rad, obviously.
He's legit. I mean, it was fun. I grew up. I'm an avid skier. I love skiing, and I knew he was going to be at Trail Hero. Him and Kimberly, and I'm like, okay, I got to get this interview. So I went up and introduced myself, and they're like, yeah, let's do it. Well, he was commentating. He was busy all week, and Kimberly's like, okay, yeah, we'll do it then. And then it didn't happen. Anyways, finally it happened on Sunday. Sunday morning.
Sunday.
Yeah, at the end of the deal, and sat down with them and recorded, and then, I'm like, I had all my shit loaded up on the trailer to go back to San Jose, and they go, hey, we're going to go out on a trail. You want to go? And I'm like, yeah, I do, but
I'm going to unload right now. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what happened. Is like,
So I go, okay. They go, hey, we're going to grab some lunch. I go, okay, I'm going to go back to my camper, make a sandwich, and then I'm like, fucking pulled the straps off the buggy
No,
and
you
backed
cut-
it
you
down.
cut
I'm
the
like, yeah,
straps
let's
off.
go wheeling.
you cut the straps off your buggy.
Pretty much. But anyways, super
Didn't even
cool.
unstrap it, just drove out from under it.
And Kimberly drives, right? They got that buggy, and Kimberly's the driver, and Glenn's the guide. He's a great guide, but Kimberly's badass, certified badass behind the wheel of that thing, and she's not afraid of anything. And we're climbing up some ledges, yeah, just like your wife. I love it. I love seeing the females out there just killing it. Like Amber, we talk about Amber Turner too, that just killed it. So it's fun seeing, just, they were doing stuff, and I'm like, okay, I'll give this a try. But they're doing it with a smile and happy. Anyways, great people, and that's all part of the sport, and getting out there and just wheeling.
Yeah.
The whole off-road network is pretty fun.
It really is, isn't it?
Everybody knows somebody.
Exactly. The crossovers are great.
Yeah.
Yeah, the small world gets smaller, right? If you're an off-road guy,
Exactly.
there's some link.
Exactly.
Oh,
I
man,
mean,
everywhere sideways.
And there's the camaraderie between Toyota, Jeep, whatever. But, at the end of the day, when you get out there and you've all done whatever trail, Rubicon, for example, that we all know and love, and you get out there around the campfire, sitting at the springs or something, and it's just like, we all just conquered some serious shit and having a good time. And it's pretty cool. I mean, we give each other shit during the day and have fun, but at the end of the day, we end up around the campfire with all our junk either in some sort of disrepair or whatever.
No fireball.
Yeah. So it's great. Man, what else you want to talk about, Randy? We've covered a lot of ground here. What
do you got for me next?
I don't know. So one thing I got one more question is, so one King of the Hammers twice. You come into 2021. Dave is spouting out that this is going to be the toughest race. If anybody finishes the race, it's going to be in the dark. We got this trail called, King's Graveyard that's dead below. So, rename that, whatever. There's a whole debate there. And you finish in 7 hours, 1 minute and 17 seconds in daylight and lapped, what did you start? 29th. And you come in first to Hammer, physically first person, first vehicle to come back into Hammertown.
You know what was so nice about it when I rolled in was Dave came up and congratulated me. He didn't have anything sassy to say. He didn't accuse me of running over anybody. He didn't accuse me of spraying sand in anybody's vagina.
Whoa!
It was a magical moment.
I love it.
Is that the first time the V word's been used?
I think so on the podcast. It probably is.
Wow.
I think we said vagine once, but I don't know. Not vagina.
VJJ?
This is
You're
great.
First here on Wheeling Wine.
That's why we have
Whiskey.
the explicit logo there, Chris.
I know.
I love it. That's
not to offend
so Dave
the
came
ladies
up and
out
it's
there.
like, dude, you won.
And it wasn't, let's wait and see. It was like, you did
You
it, bud.
clearly won.
Yeah. Nice job.
Yeah, there was no, even if time penalties or anything came into account, there was no way that this was going to be disputed.
They'd been watching.
Yeah.
They knew exactly where I was all day long. They weren't telling anybody on the live stream where I was.
Yeah.
But they knew.
They
God,
ghosted
that's so good. So good. So do you think, looking forward to 2022 KOH, because Dave obviously wants to make it the hardest race and continue to be the hardest race in the world, off-road 1 day race, are they going to add an extra lap, or what would you like to see to just make it even harder?
We talk about my highs and lows from this year. So I really, really liked what Dave attempted. Well, what Dave pulled off this year. I really enjoyed it. They went out of their normal program. They found some new trails that we'd never run. They used some new link ups that we'd never run. And they didn't just say lap 2 is lap 3 and lap 3 we're going to throw X and Y in as well. He legitimately made lap 2 and lap 3 very, very different, to the point where when I was winning in 15 and we went up Jackhammer for miles, I was very concerned coming back around to Jackhammer that it was going to be a bottleneck. We're hearing on the radio that there's 50 cars, that it's like a parking lot, like it's LA traffic.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
And the last thing I wanted to do was lose my lead sitting in traffic and have some wingnet winch past me in the shit show and win because I got balled up in traffic.
Sure.
So they ended up doing the right thing that year, and they escorted us past that trail and tied us back in at the next, point around it. But this year they eliminated all those problems by backdoor up was once on any lap you choose.
Right.
And then lap 2 was jackhammer up, and lap 3 was sledgehammer up. Mm-hmm. And then, lap 3 was King's Graveyard dead blow down.
Mm-hmm.
And Hill's Butthole. Devil's.
Oh yeah.
Hell's Revenge. Hell's Revenge? No, that's not right. That's Moab.
Yeah.
Gate?
I was gonna say
Hell's Gate? Devil's Gate? I can't even remember what it was. I had legitimately never seen it until Hammers Week this year.
Really?
Which is going some for me. But yeah, I liked the format. I liked what they did. I'd like to see some more mileage. I'd like to see more hard trails in the future. But I would like to win and finish after dark. That sounds amazing. Let's do that.
I love it.
Set it up.
But I really, really, really appreciated. Night run. Let's do it.
I got $2,000 worth of lights on this rig. I want to use them.
That's right.
Wreck wheeling, that's where all the fun times happen.
Yeah.
After dark.
Nothing bad happens
Our
at night
KOH
runs.
week was the same way, Wreck wheeling before the race. Yeah. At night. It was a blast.
Shit.
The last couple of years, we've run SOS and Turkey Claw and Martian Claw and Off Your Rocker and all the stuff that's not race car track over and over and over. It's crazy.
Sure.
Like how much wheeling we get in. Race week, nobody would believe it, but we're just out burning it down.
Well, you just
tearing up
fill,
those
right?
BFG tires.
Right.
Okay. Hell to pay.
Oh, hell to pay.
We had all kinds of nicknames and they were all wrong.
Okay.
It's
wrong.
hell to
Right.
pay.
Yep.
Good research there.
Yeah, that's
Hell
right.
to Pay was a good one.
We have an opening, so we're looking for a super producer.
Yeah, you could fill in, Nick.
Yeah, this we had a good plan. It's a low buck program, as we've covered a few times here tonight, but we had a good plan, and Justin from Factor 55, was part of that. We're experienced racer over here, right? To my right, Randy, but you got to know your limits. That's all part of it.
Sure.
Right? So we came up with the plan. We knew the places where we were likely to pull winch, and we made a plan for it. And Justin was a big part of that. And Dustin, I think we talked about Dustin's mom more than we talked about Dustin. So, yeah. So Dustin did a hell of a job, came up with a plan, knew when we had to pull winch. I've heard stories since the race, and Randy hasn't even heard these same stories, but like coming to backdoor on lap 1, and there were 2 cars at backdoor, and this is right off the start of the race.
Right,
so we're
right at the beginning.
Right, so we're talking about, obviously Crista, Randy's wife, was with me, and we're down at the start line, and as soon as they're off the line, we're like running up to camp, and we're going to set up main pit and all this kind of stuff, and I've got somebody that's watching the live feed, and they're like, okay, they're going for it. Lap 1, right? This is what we were hoping for, but we didn't know if they were going to pull it off. They go there. There's 2 cars in front of them. That's it. Okay. He's going to have to go to the right line. That kind of sucks. And I walk like 60 feet, and they're like, Randy's passed both cars, and he's heading, up resolution or whatever. And we look, Chris and I look at each other. We're like, hell yeah. That's exactly how we wanted this day to start.
Perfect.
And Dustin was a big part of that. So I talked to, I don't know if it was Jaron or Jaron's co-driver, and they just talk about him getting out of the car and just running past everybody. There's one winch point, throwing the winch line on and making it happen. So, yeah, he was a big part of it, and we're, lucky to have him.
Awesome.
That's great.
Absolutely awesome.
So I see the check still hasn't been cashed. It's sitting up here in your shop here, the Bomber hangar. What about the new Bronco? I don't see that in the shop either. What's the story? You got a check and a Bronco this year.
It's funny you bring that up. So a week or so ago, I got a text message from Dave. What's your email address? And I text him back my email address.
Okay.
And I got CC'd shortly thereafter on a conversation between Dave and the Ford people. And shortly thereafter, they said, I don't know if Randy S. ? knows that he won a Bronco or not.
Randy S.
Wow.
At least they didn't say Mr. Slawson.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's your dad.
Hey, Larry, here's your Bronco.
So nearly a week's gone by. This morning I got a call and I missed it. I was busy welding, and I returned a call, and we played phone tag a couple times, and I finally got on the phone with some gal at Ford Performance, and she said that I needed to choose my colors for my Bronco.
Nice.
And that I might see it late third quarter, like August, September, something like that.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
So
That's encouraging.
Now, is it the Soft Squatch edition, or is you get to choose some of your packages here? Because there's like a bunch of stuff.
no, they chose everything but the color, and I got to choose if I got an automatic or a manual trans.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So what'd you go with?
Racer red or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And
Resale red.
Yeah, resale red, exactly.
We call it resale red.
Nailed it. It's actually the maroonish.
Yeah.
It's a little brighter than Crista's maroon, I believe. But a maroon and tan interior
Okay.
is what I chose.
Nice.
Nice.
Stick shift or manual?
Real sophisticated,
I mean,
thought.
stick shift or...
Well, you know, the
Does it smell of rich mahogany?
Yes.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
mahogany.
Corinthian leather.
No, it's cool. I'm interested to see it when it gets here. I haven't spent any time around them. Haven't thought much about it.
Yeah.
but it'll be fun to.
That's a nice little
check it out.
bonus, huh? Really?
Everybody's way more concerned about the Bronco than the check.
Than the check. Than the check.
My brother, I was joking about my options with the Bronco. A, punt it for top dollar.
Right.
B, take it off sweet jumps.
Jeez. Or C, roll it.
Yeah, here we go. I see a rollover coming.
Well, we've rolled everything else, so it seems
why
fitting.
not?
C, trade in for an F450.
Yeah, trade it for an F450. What could be wrong with that?
No.
My brother said he's the mature one in the relationship. He's 6 years younger than I am.
Wow.
He said, you know what? If you keep that thing, you take it out on special occasions, and you still have it when you're 65 or 70, it'll probably be one of those things that you find very special and meaningful in your life. Like, I won that in 2021, and I still have it today. It was one of the very first Bronco 3s ever made.
Yeah,
I don't know what
right.
you call the thing.
COVID edition Bronco. You know?
The COVID edition, you know. So I haven't honestly decided exactly what's going to happen with it. It's funny that the interest that's come along with that. King said, we've got a killer shock package. Let's put shocks on it. And Larry at Trail Ready, he's hit me up 3 or 4 times. He's like, I want to put wheels on it. He said, I don't care if you don't want to keep them.
Wow.
Like, I want to test fit some wheels on that Bronco.
Yeah.
And BFG said, let's put some tires. If it doesn't come on BFGs, we're putting BFGs on
Okay,
that
well, there
rig.
you go.
And Larry's like, I want to build a bumper on it. And I don't remember what else, but it's funny how
They're lining up.
people are really excited about this thing. And it'll be an interesting rig, interesting to see how it plays out, interesting to play with it a little bit. And
That's cool. Well,
See
we
what I
can
think
offer
about
up some Wheeling Wine and Whiskey stickers and some koozies for the center console. That's about what we can offer up.
Sweet.
There you go.
No, that's cool, man. This has been great hanging out with you in your shop here.
The hanger.
And hanging
Bomber
out with
Fab
you.
World Headquarters.
Yes.
I like
And
it.
I mean, it's legit. It's legit. It's fun to see all this stuff, and you see it on the gram or the Facebooks, the internet webs there. But to sit down and get to hear your story and firsthand, appreciate your time, Randy and Nick. Being crew chief and being involved in this operation, and we need to do a whole separate podcast with you and your recovery mission. There's some great Glacier Girl and some great recoveries out there on the Rubicon and stuff. I don't know. Is there anything else you guys wanted to cover? Randy's looking at Nick. Nick's
No.
looking at Randy. Nothing.
Sounds like we're done.
Krista is quiet.
So many stories.
Did you get to talk about those tires?
BFGs.
Do you want to give a shout out to any
Yeah,
of
you
your
want sponsor
sponsors?
shout outs or anything? Or
Yeah, let's do a sponsor shout out. I really don't do well with that, so let's try it.
Okay. Look at the side of your
Baja
car.
Designs has the best lights on the market.
There you go.
Bulldog winch. I'll tell you just a quick little tale about that. When I was building Bomber 1 in my garage, a gentleman from the East Coast said, I bet Bulldog will give you a winch for that car, because I hadn't procured one yet and I needed one to go racing. And I called up that dude and he said, yep, we'll send you a winch over. And I've had Bulldog winch on every car to date, and he was my very first sponsor. That's pretty cool.
Okay,
cool.
so that was your first sponsor, Bulldog Winch.
I have made a point of sticking with every sponsor that has had the gall to stick with me, and I've tried to do them proud over the years, you know.
Absolutely.
And so PSC has been with me for a long time. PCI, Maximum Trans has built me some badass transmissions. G&J Aircraft, that dude, he loves King of the Hammers so much. He's not a rock crawler, but he comes out year after year and takes his week-long vacation and works for Dave on the course. And,
That's awesome.
and volunteers basically to make it all happen, just because he thinks our sport is so cool.
Right on.
Well, it is.
Jim at JE Reel, Jim and I go way back. Lots of good times sitting, chatting with him in his office and talking on the phone and working out what's going to be the best driveline option for me. Spider Tracks. Josh West has been on my team for quite some time. Now he's at CBM Motorsports, which is also a longtime sponsor. Trail Ready. A few years back, I was having some sponsor problems, and I hit up Larry, and he said, "You know what? King of the Hammers is the one thing that I have left on my list that I need to check off." And he said, "You have that pedigree, whatever you want to call it. I'd like to sponsor you, and let's make it happen." And it took a little longer than I hoped it would. Wish it would, but we did it this year. Casey, Chase, I butchered his name. Chase Cabrera won on Trail Readies the day before in EMC, and I did the next day, so that was pretty cool. BFG, I was courting BFG when I built the very first bomber car at Off-Road Expo in 2008. I hit up the guy, and I was trying to make something happen. I had some Super Swampers on my rig and really didn't want to race on them.
Right.
And
Heavy tires.
yeah, the story goes, Victor hit up Dave. Victor was the BFG guy at the time. And he said, "I got 2 sets of tires left. Who should I give them to?" And he said, "Randy Slawson and Rick Mooneyham." So Rick and I got BFG tires in 2009, and I've been on BFG tires ever since.
Wow. Awesome.
I'm the only King of the Hammers racer who's won King of the Hammers that didn't bounce. One of them bounced back and immediately started winning again. Well, he will remain nameless. Factor 55, King Shocks. I saved the best for last.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got King everywhere up there.
Like we talked about earlier, my very first race I was on Fox Shocks, and that was a fiasco. Couldn't have been more disgruntled with that whole situation, but King's more than made up for it and made me feel like I was part of the family, and it's been super cool being with them. CBR, custom built radiator. I've been using their cooling for quite some time, and it's great. Axial, that's a whole story, but I was was able to get tied in with those guys through Jake Hallenbeck. Jake owned a small RC rock crawling, actually the biggest RC rock crawling deal on the interwebs. And he bought my second bomber car, and those guys hit me up and they wanted to build a bomber car. So we ended up striking up a little friendship, and it turned into a pretty cool thing where now every kid out there has got a little bomber RC car.
It's really awesome. Yeah.
It's super cool. Everywhere I go, when I see one of those things and some youngsters grinning ear to ear, it's a proud moment.
Pretty cool.
It's super rad to have all the mini me's out there.
Do you show them how to roll it over, or?
I honestly, most of the time, I'm trying to keep Willis from killing their car.
Willis is the dog.
My healer really likes axial tires. They taste like chicken.
And not
he's
just
coming over now. You heard his name.
Yeah.
and not just youngsters.
Right?
The man I was on the mountain with today, I was like, man, I'm trying to get home. I got this podcast to do with Randy Slawson. He's like,
Randy
is
Slawson.
that the bomber guy? And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, do you follow King of the Hammers? He's like, what are you talking about? And I was like,
What are you talking about?
Ultra 4, King of the
What are you talking about,
Hammers,
Willis?
3-time winner. He's like, oh, I have an RC car.
I have a bomber RC car.
This man
Oh,
is
boy.
like mid-60s. And axial bomber, baby.
Well, you get recognized one way or another, right?
There you go.
I'll take it. Good times.
It's about the only thing I could afford is a bomber RC car.
That's the closest I'm ever going to get. Randy, awesome times. Thank you very much for inviting us into your shop and giving us your time.
Thanks for making the trip over. I feel like we've touched on some fun stories and subjects. I feel like I could go another 4 hours pretty easily.
I feel like we've only glossed over,
I know. I think we're going to have
scratch the
to
surface.
do a follow-up.
Yeah, I think so. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to run out of memory here.
Oh, is that what's happening? We're that long into it? No, it's been great. Appreciate your time, Randy, and invited us into your shop. And yeah, would definitely love to follow up with you in the future. Nick, I know I was coordinating with you early on, and thanks for reaching out. This has been cool. This podcast thing. This is our 99th episode. Woo. And I'm just stoked that we got to get another king, 3-time king on the podcast.
Absolutely.
And get the kind of little behind the scenes inner workings of Bomber Fabrication and this whole operation here. So yeah, absolutely awesome. So,
Right on. Yeah, well, sounds like we'll be doing it again.
I think so.
Yeah.
I
Heck
think
yeah.
so.
Absolutely.
Next time we need to figure out how to do it in the dirt.
Oh, I was going to say, we'll do it on the
Everything
Rubicon.
is better in the dirt.
Rubicon
Yeah, it's
or
always better in the dirt.
Meadow Lake is always a great
Yeah,
backdrop.
Meadow
too.
Lake. We'll
I was there
Rubicon
today.
something. Yeah, you were right there today in the snow.
There was no dirt. I was there today.
That's a whole. There was caverns and snow. That's a whole other podcast.
Right on.
So, Randy, we find you at Bomber Fabrication on IG and bomberfab.com on the World Wide Webs. Nick, find you at Avalanche Technical on the IG.
On the IG. Yeah,
and then
website is the same.
is avalanchetechnical.com. So check them out. We will get a separate interview with you later, and we may invite Randy just to add some anecdotal stuff there. I think
That's
that
good.
would be
I mean,
good.
it's cool. That's the greatest thing about off-road racing is that kind of in that aspect, Randy looks at me and scratches his head sometimes, I think, but he likes going fast, and I just want to go everywhere.
Yeah.
Anytime.
There you go.
Yeah,
Perfect.
from desert racing to rock
Snowmobiles.
crawling to KOH, which has a little bit of everything. So it's cool. So
Snow extractions.
yeah,
Right.
snow extractions.
I like snow wheeling.
Yeah, snow wheeling for the win.
So anyway, yeah, absolutely. Very cool. If you want to get a hold of Jason or Chris, you can catch us, Jason or Chris at wheelingwineandwhiskey.com. Don't forget to take a look at our website, www.wheelingwineandwhiskey.com, where you can
New
see
swag there too.
Yeah, we have new stuff coming up. We'll cover that a little bit more the next episode. You can also see our Patreon there if you feel so inclined to give us your money, which we certainly would appreciate.
We love money.
Got some sweet beanies.
Yeah,
Don't miss them.
sweet
With all this-
beanies,
with-
caps.
With all this new whiskey we bought, we need money. So
We do. And on that note,
we're out.